Hi guys, tonight we step quietly into the frozen world of a stone castle to see how people found warmth in the deep winter. The sun is sinking, the air is turning cold. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing on the edge of a wide, open field. The ground beneath your feet is hard. It has been frozen solid 4 days. The dirt, which is usually soft and brown, has turned into something like grey rock. The ridges of the ploughed earth are sharp and dusted with a fine layer of white frost. It looks like sugar sprinkled over a dark cake. You look up at the sky. It is that special time of evening in late autumn. The sun has gone down behind the hills, leaving a streak of pale orange light on the horizon. Above that, the sky is turning a deep, bruised purple. Soon, it will be completely black. You can already see the first star twinkling, high up and lonely. It looks cold, just like everything else down here. You take a deep breath. The air is so cold, it almost hurts your chest. It tastes clean and sharp, like metal. When you breathe out, a cloud of white steam drifts away from your face. It hangs in the air for a moment before the wind takes it away. You are a dragon breathing smoke in the quiet night. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It is made of heavy, rough wool. It is thick and scratchy against your neck, but you are glad for it. It still smells a little bit like the sheep it came from, a natural, oily smell that reminds you of a barn. The wool is heavy, weighing you down, but it blocks the wind. The wind is the real enemy tonight. It is not blowing hard, but it is steady. It pushes against your back, urging you to keep moving. You start to walk. Your destination is ahead of you, looming in the distance. It is the castle. From here, across the fields, it looks like a giant shadow. It is a massive block of black stone against the darkening sky. It does not look welcoming. It looks like a fist of rock rising out of the flatland. We often dream about castles as magical places. We think of them as palaces full of gold and soft velvet. But tonight, you will see the truth. A castle is a machine for war. It was built to stop armies, not to be a cozy home. The walls are made of solid stone, sometimes 10 feet thick. Stone is very strong. It cannot be burned down. Arrows bounce off it. But stone has a secret. It loves the cold. In the summer, the stone stays cool, which is nice. But in the winter, the stone acts like a giant sponge for the freezing air. It soaks up the frost. It holds the cold deep inside its belly. Living inside a castle in winter is like living inside a cave made of ice blocks. And tonight, you are going to see how the people inside fight a constant battle against that chill. You keep walking. The path is uneven. You have to be careful where you step. There are frozen puddles that look like black mirrors. If you stepped on one, the ice would crack with a loud snap. You look down at your feet. You are wearing leather boots, soft and worn from years of use. But over your boots, you have strapped on something else. They are called pattens. A pattern is a simple tool, but a clever one. It is a wooden sole, shaped like your foot. It has leather straps that tie over your boot. On the bottom of the wooden sole, there are 2 iron rings or blocks of wood. These raise your foot up by an inch or 2. They are clunky to walk in. They make a hollow clack sound on the frozen ground. But they are vital. They keep your leather boots out of the wet mud and the freezing slush. Without them, the cold water would soak into the leather and freeze your toes. With the pattens, you are walking on little wooden stilts, hovering just above the frost. Clack, clack, clack. The sound echoes in the empty field. You stop for a moment to adjust the strap on your left foot. While you are stopped, you listen. The world is incredibly quiet. There is no hum of traffic, no distant roar of an airplane, no electric buzz of streetlights. There is only the sound of nature going to sleep. You hear the rustle of dry leaves in a hedgerow nearby. A small bird flutters its wings, settling in for the night. Far away, towards the woods, an owl calls out. It is a haunting, hollow sound. Hoo-hoo. You stand there in the silence. You can feel the cold pressing against your face, your nose, the tips of your ears. Your skin feels tight. You wiggle your fingers inside your thick leather gloves to keep the blood moving. It is time to get inside. You start moving again, finding your rhythm. The castle is getting closer now. You can see the details of it. You see the tall towers at the corners, round and smooth. You see the narrow slits in the walls, where archers would stand to shoot arrows. There are no big glass windows on the outside walls. Glass is expensive, and big windows are weak spots for enemies to break through. So the walls are just blank, cold faces of stone. You can see the top of the wall, the battlements. They look like teeth biting into the sky. A flag is flapping up there on a wooden pole. You can hear the fabric snapping in the wind. Snap, snap. It sounds wet and heavy. As you get closer, the ground slopes down. You are approaching the moat. This is the deep ditch dug all the way around the castle walls. Sometimes moats are dry, filled with sharp stakes, but this one is filled with water from the nearby river. You walk to the edge of the bank and look down. The water is black and still. Near the edges, where the water touches the frozen earth, a thin layer of ice has started to form. It looks like delicate lace floating on the surface. In the middle, the water is too deep to freeze yet, but it looks deadly cold. If you fell in there, the shock would take your breath away instantly. The smell of the water comes up to you. It smells of damp earth, rotting leaves, and cold mud. It is a heavy, earthy smell. It reminds you that you are standing in the middle of a wild, raw landscape. You look up at the main gatehouse. It is a huge tower built right over the entrance. It is the only way in. Two massive wooden doors are open, but only just. Above the doors, you can see the iron spikes of the portcullis. This is a heavy grate made of wood and iron that can be dropped down to seal the entrance in seconds. It hangs there like a giant jaw waiting to close. But tonight, the jaw is open. You see a warm, orange glow coming from inside the tunnel of the gatehouse. It is the light of a torch. It flickers and dances, casting long, jumping shadows on the stone walls. It is the only color in this whole grey world. You walk towards that light. Your wooden patterns clatter on the wooden planks of the bridge. You are leaving the open, freezing field behind. You are heading into the belly of the stone beast. You hope it is warmer inside, but you know the stone has been waiting for you, cold and patient. The wind gives you one last push from behind, blowing your hair across your face. You tuck your chin down into your scarf and step forward. The cold is deep, but the journey to find the heat has just begun. You take one last look at the frozen field, glistening under the first stars, and then you turn your eyes to the dark archway ahead. You step off the frozen dirt path and onto the wooden bridge. The sound of your walking changes instantly. On the grass, your feet made a soft crunching noise, but here, on the heavy timber planks, your steps are loud and hollow. Thud, thud, thud. The sound echoes a little bit, bouncing off the water below and the stone walls ahead. It announces that you have arrived. You can feel the vibration of the wood through the soreness of your boots. The bridge feels solid, but it is not dead like the ground. It has a tiny bit of give. It moves just a fraction of an inch with your weight. It feels alive, like a sleeping animal. You pause for a moment to rest your hand on the railing. The wood is old oak. It is hard as rock. Over hundreds of years, the rain and the sun have turned it a silver-grey color. It feels rough under your gloved hand. You can feel the deep grooves in the grain where the softer parts of the wood have worn away, leaving only the hardest ridges behind. There is a layer of frost here, too. The ice has settled into the cracks of the wood. It sparkles in the dim light coming from the gatehouse. You have to walk carefully. The planks are slippery. If you rush, your feet might slide out from under you. But you do not rush. You take your time, planting each foot flat and firm. The wind feels stronger here. Out in the field, the wind could go anywhere. But here, the high walls of the castle block the sky. The walls act like a funnel. They catch the wind and squeeze it into this narrow space. It whistles as it rushes past your ears. It tugs at the hem of your wool cloak, trying to pull it open. You have to use one hand to hold the heavy fabric shut against your chest. You look at the bridge itself. It is not just a simple road over the water. It is a clever machine. You look up and see two thick iron chains disappearing into holes in the stone wall above the gate. The chains are rusty and black. Each link is the size of your hand. They look heavy and cold. These chains are attached to the end of the bridge where you are standing. This is the drawbridge. It is designed to vanish. In times of peace, like tonight, it stays down. It is a welcoming path. But if an enemy were coming, the guards inside would turn a great wheel. The chains would pull tight. With a groan of wood and iron, this whole bridge would lift up into the air. It would stand straight up, covering the door like a shield. The path would disappear, leaving only the open water of the moat to stop anyone from crossing. But the clever part is how it moves. A bridge like this is incredibly heavy. It weighs as much as a large tree. But the builders were smart. Inside the wall, hidden in the dark stone tower, there are heavy weights hanging on the other end of the chains. These are called counterweights. They balance the bridge, just like two kids on a seesaw. Because of the weights, even a single guard can lift this massive bridge with just one hand on the winch. It is a perfect balance of weight and power. You look down over the railing. The moat is directly below you. It is a dark, silent drop. The water looks like black ink. It is so still that it reflects the stars perfectly. It looks like another sky, deep under your feet. For a moment, the wind dies down. The whistling stops. In the sudden silence, you can hear the water touching the stone walls of the castle. Slap, slap. It is a gentle, rhythmic sound. It sounds like a heartbeat. It reminds you that the castle is surrounded by water, isolated from the dry land. It is an island of stone in a sea of grass. You can smell the water more strongly here. It smells of wet moss and cold fish. It is a damp smell that seems to seep into your clothes. You can imagine how cold it would be to fall in. The water would sap the heat from your body in seconds. It makes you grateful for the thick planks beneath your boots. You start walking again, moving towards the gatehouse. The entrance is a dark archway, like a mouth opening in the face of the cliff. The stone around the arch is huge. The blocks are cut into perfect squares. They are grey and speckled with green lichen. As you get closer to the door, you see the wood of the gate itself. These are the main doors of the castle. They are enormous. They are made of vertical planks of oak, strapped together with horizontal iron bands. You notice a small detail on the door. It is covered in iron studs. Hundreds of round, metal nail heads cover the front of the wood. They look decorative, like polka dots made of iron. But they are not just for looks. This is a micro-history detail that tells you about the danger of this time. The studs are there to protect the wood from axes. If a soldier tried to chop through the door with an axe, the blade would hit the round iron head and bounce off. It would blunt the axe and save the wood. It is armor for the door. The iron studs are dull and pitted with age. Some of them have streaks of orange rust running down the wood, staining the grey oak. They look like old scars. You reach the end of the wooden bridge. There is a small gap between the wood of the bridge and the stone floor of the gatehouse. You step over it. Step. Now you are under the stone arch. The sky is gone. You are standing inside the tunnel of the gatehouse. The air changes immediately. It is still cold, but the biting wind is gone. The thick stone walls block it out completely. It feels still and heavy in here. Above your head, the ceiling is vaulted. Ribs of stone curve up to meet in the center. But if you look closely in the dim light, you see holes in the ceiling. They are dark, round circles looking down at you. These are called murder holes. It is a scary name, but accurate. If someone broke through the outer door, the defenders upstairs could pour boiling water or hot sand down through these holes onto the attackers below. Tonight, they are just dark eyes watching you. They let a little draft of cold air fall down onto your head, tickling your hair. You are standing in the limbo space. You are past the moat, but not yet in the castle yard. You are in the throat of the fortress. You see a guard sitting on a wooden stool near the inner door. He is wrapped in a thick wool blanket that covers him from his nose to his boots. He looks like a pile of grey laundry. He does not move as you walk past. He just watches you with tired eyes. He has a lantern by his feet. The candle inside is burning low, casting a warm, yellow circle of light on the flagstones. You can smell the smoke from his lantern. It smells of beef fat. It is a greasy, heavy smell, typical of the cheap tallow candles used by guards and servants. It is not a pleasant smell, like beeswax, but it smells like safety. It means someone is awake. Someone is watching the door. You nod to the guard. He blinks slowly, acknowledging you, but he does not speak. He is saving his warmth. Talking wastes breath, and breath is heat. You walk past him, your boots scuffing on the stone floor. You are approaching the inner archway. Beyond it lies the courtyard. You can see a faint grey light opening up ahead. You are about to enter the heart of the castle. You pause one last time before stepping out. You look back at the drawbridge, framed by the stone arch. You can see the night sky and the frozen field beyond. It looks like a painting of a winter night. It feels very far away now. You have crossed the line. You have left the wild, open world and entered the enclosed, ordered world of the Lord. You turn your back on the cold field. You pull your cloak tight again. You step through the inner arch and into the castle courtyard. The journey into the cold stone has truly begun. You step out from the shelter of the gatehouse archway. The heavy stone ceiling above you disappears. The sky opens up again, vast and speckled with stars. You are now inside the castle walls. You are in the courtyard. In the old books, they often call this the bailey or the ward, but really, it is just a big, open yard. It is the empty space in the middle of the stone ring. It feels different than the open field you walked through earlier. The field felt wide and endless, like you could walk forever and never hit a wall. But here, the world feels contained. You are standing at the bottom of a deep bowl. The high walls of the castle surround you on all sides, blocking out the horizon. You feel held by the stone. You feel safe. You stop to let your eyes adjust. It is darker here than it was outside. The high walls block the moonlight. The shadows are long and deep black. They stretch across the ground like spilled ink. You look down at your feet. You have to be very careful here. In the movies, castle courtyards are often shown as flat, paved squares of neat stone. But that is not true for most castles. Paving stones are expensive. They take a lot of work to cut and lay down. So, unless the lord is very rich, the courtyard is just dirt. It is packed earth. You take a step. Crunch. The ground is uneven. It is a mess of frozen ridges and holes. You can see the history of the last few weeks written in the dirt. Before the freeze came, it must have rained heavily. You can picture this yard as a swamp of brown mud. Hundreds of feet walked here. Soldiers, servants, horses, and carts all churned the wet earth into a thick soup. Then, the temperature dropped. The frost came down like a hammer. It froze the mud instantly, mid-movement. You look closely at the ground near your boots. You see the deep track of a cart wheel. It cuts a long groove through the dirt. The edges of the rut are sharp and jagged. They are frozen hard as iron. If you tripped and fell on them, it would cut your skin. Next to the wheel track, you see footprints. You can see the shape of a horse's hoof, pressed deep into the mud. You can see the smaller, sliding marks of people's boots. But now, they are not soft mud. They are rock. The whole courtyard is a frozen sculpture of a busy day. It is a choppy sea of brown earth that has turned into stone. You walk slowly, picking your path through the frozen waves. Your wooden patterns are useful here. They bridge the gaps over the rough ground. You have to keep your knees bent and your weight balanced. It is a slow, careful dance to get across the yard. As you move deeper into the courtyard, you look around at the buildings. A castle is not just one big house. It is more like a tiny, fortified village, built up against the inside of the big outer wall. There are many smaller buildings. They are lean-tos and sheds. Most of them are made of timber with thatched roofs made of straw. These are the working parts of the castle. To your left, you see a long, low building. You can hear a soft sound coming from inside. Snort, stomp. It is the stables. The horses are in there. You can smell them. It is a warm, grassy smell. It smells of hay and animal heat. It is a comforting scent in the biting cold air. You know that inside that wooden shed, the big war horses are huddled together, their breath steaming, keeping each other warm. To your right, you see a darker, quieter shed. This is likely the smithy, where the blacksmith works. During the day, this would be the loudest place in the castle. You would hear the clang, clang, clang of the hammer on the anvil. You would see sparks flying and feel the heat of the forge fire. But tonight, the fire is out. The anvil is cold. The iron tools are hanging on the walls, silent and still. The silence here feels heavy. It is the silence of a place that is usually full of noise. It feels like the castle is holding its breath. You walk past a large wooden barrel standing under the corner of a roof. It is a water butt, put there to catch the rain dripping from the gutters. You stop and look into it. The water inside is frozen solid. It is a block of ice. You tap it with the knuckle of your glove. Thud. It makes a dull, solid sound. It is not just a thin skin of ice. It is frozen inches deep. This is a small detail, but it tells you how cold it truly is. In a stone castle, water is life. You need it for drinking, for cooking, for washing, and for putting out fires. When the water barrels freeze, it is a problem. In the morning, a servant will have to come out here with a heavy iron bar to smash the ice just to get a bucket of water. It is hard work. Everything takes longer in the winter. You lift your head and look across the yard to the other side. There, looming over everything, is the keep. The keep is the heart of the castle. It is the great tower. It stands taller and stronger than anything else. It is a massive square block of grey stone rising up into the night sky. It looks like a cliff face. This is where the Lord lives. This is where the food is stored. This is the last line of defense. If an army broke through the outer wall where you just walked, everyone would run into this tower and lock the door. The keep has no windows on the ground floor. It just has thick, sloping walls at the base. This is to stop enemies from climbing up or using a battering ram. The only way in is a set of stone stairs that go up the side of the building to a door on the first floor. You see a light coming from that door. It is warm and inviting. It spills out onto the stone steps, turning them gold. You start walking towards that light. You leave the wooden sheds and the frozen mud behind. You are drawn to the big stone tower like a moth to a candle. As you walk, you feel the wind swirling around inside the courtyard. Because the walls are so high, the wind gets trapped in here. It spins around in circles, picking up dry leaves and bits of straw. They dance across the ground with a scratching sound. Scritch, scratch. You stop for a moment in the center of the yard. You are alone. The guard at the gate is behind you. The people in the tower are ahead of you. For this moment, you are just a small figure standing in the dark, frozen bowl of the castle. You look up. The walls of the keep block out a huge square of the sky. The stone looks so permanent. It has stood here for hundreds of years. It has seen thousands of winter nights just like this one. It has felt the rain, the snow, and the frost. It does not care. It just stands there, silent and strong. You feel a sense of respect for the builders who made this. They cut these rocks by hand. They lifted them up with ropes and pulleys. They mixed the mortar that holds them together. And they did it all without engines or electricity. They built a mountain out of pieces of rock to keep their families safe and warm. You feel the cold seeping through the soles of your boots. The frozen mud is trying to steal your heat. It is time to keep moving. You cannot stand still for too long on a night like this. You head for the stone stairs of the keep. These steps are wider and smoother than the rough ground of the yard. They are worn down in the middle, dipped like smooth spoons, from centuries of feet walking up and down. You climb the steps. 1, 2, 3. With every step, you get closer to the warmth. You can smell something new now. It is coming from the open door above. It is the smell of roasting meat. It is the smell of wood smoke, but stronger and richer than the guard's lantern. It is the smell of the great hall. You reach the top of the stairs. You stand before the heavy wooden door of the keep. It is open, just a crack. You can feel a draft of warm air leaking out. It brushes against your frozen cheek like a warm hand. It feels incredible. You push the door open. The hinges groan, a deep, rusty sound that echoes in the night. You step over the threshold. You are leaving the outdoor world of ice and wind. You are entering the inner sanctum. You are stepping into the home of the medieval lord. The darkness of the yard is behind you. The golden light is ahead. You take a breath, ready to face the heat. You push the heavy wooden door shut behind you. Thud. The heavy latch falls into place with a solid clank of iron. Instantly, the roaring sound of the wind outside is cut off. The world goes quiet. The howling gale turns into a soft, distant murmur, like a memory of a storm rather than a real one. You stand there for a moment, just breathing. The air in here is different. It is thick. It is heavy. It wraps around you like a warm blanket. After the biting frost of the courtyard, the heat in this room feels shocking. It rushes at you, tingling against your frozen cheeks. You can feel your skin tightening and then relaxing as the warmth sinks in. You are standing in the great hall. This is the main room of the castle. In a modern house, we have separate rooms for everything. We have a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, and a bedroom. But in the medieval castle, the great hall was all of those things mixed into one. This is where they ate. This is where they talked. This is where the servants slept on the floor. This is the heart of the home. The room is enormous. It feels more like a stone barn or a church than a living room. The ceiling is high above your head, lost in the shadows. The walls are far apart. You feel small standing here, but your eyes are drawn to one thing. In the very center of the room, there is a fire. It is not tucked away in a fireplace against the wall like we are used to seeing. This is an old castle, built before wall chimneys were common. So, the fire sits right in the middle of the floor. You walk towards it. Your boots make a soft tapping sound on the stone floor. As you get closer, you see the hearth. It is a raised platform of stone, shaped like an octagon, sitting directly on the flagstones. It is like a stone stage for the fire. The fire itself is massive. It is not a polite little fire with a few logs. It is a bonfire. Great trunks of trees are burning there. They are stacked high, leaning against each other like a wooden tent. The flames are leaping up, 4 or 5 feet into the air. They are bright orange and yellow, dancing and twisting. You hold your hands out towards the flames. You are wearing thick leather gloves, but the heat is so strong it punches right through the leather. You can feel your fingers starting to wake up. They ache a little bit as the blood starts to flow again. It is a prickly feeling, like tiny pins and needles, but it is a good pain. It means you are safe. You watch the smoke rising from the fire. This is the one problem with a central fire. Where does the smoke go? You look up. You tilt your head back and look into the dark rafters of the roof. High up, right above the fire, there is a structure called a louver. It is a simple invention. It is like a small wooden tower built on top of the roof. It has slats in the sides, like window blinds. The smoke rises straight up in a column of blue-grey air. It drifts up into the darkness and escapes through the slats in the louver. Most of the smoke gets out, but not all of it. You can smell the wood smoke in the air. It is a sweet, rich smell. It smells like burning apple wood or oak. It hangs in the room like a thin fog. If you look across the hall, the stone walls on the other side look a bit hazy. The smoke stings your eyes just a tiny bit, making them water. But it is a small price to pay for this heat. The smell of smoke is the smell of survival in the winter. You look closer at the fire. You notice the metal bars holding the wood in place. These are a special tool. They are called fire dogs. A fire dog is an iron bar that stands on 2 legs at the front and rests on the ground at the back. There is one on the left and one on the right. The big logs rest across them. This is a clever piece of micro-history. Why lift the wood up? If the wood sits flat on the stone, the air cannot get underneath it. The fire would struggle to breathe. It would be smoky and cold. But by resting the logs on the iron dogs, the air can flow under the wood. It feeds the flames from the bottom. It makes the fire burn hot and bright. You look at the front of the iron bars. They have been hammered by the blacksmith into a shape. They look like the heads of dogs, with open mouths and little ears. They stand there, guarding the fire. Their iron faces glowing red in the heat. They are the silent pets of the great hall, never sleeping, always holding up the warmth. You step a little closer, careful not to singe your cloak. You turn around, so your back is to the fire. You let the heat soak into your spine. This is how the Lord would stand. This is the best spot in the castle. From here, you can see the rest of the room. The hall is empty now. The tables have been pushed against the walls to make space. They are long, heavy trestle tables made of oak planks. They look scarred and worn. Thousands of dinners have been eaten there. Thousands of knives have cut meat on those boards. In the shadows near the walls, you see wooden benches. They are simple and hard. There are no soft sofas here. Everything is built to last, not for comfort. The light from the fire flickers on the walls. It makes the shadows jump and move. It looks like the stone walls are breathing. The corners of the room are pitch black. The fire is bright, but it cannot reach everywhere. It creates a circle of light in the middle of a dark world. You listen to the sound of the fire. It is loud, crackle, pop. Every now and then, a pocket of sap in the wood explodes. It sounds like a whip cracking. A shower of bright orange sparks flies up into the air. They swirl around in the draft, floating up towards the roof like tiny fireflies. You watch one spark drift higher and higher until it fades away into the dark. Underneath the loud pops, there is a steady roar. It is the sound of the air being sucked into the flames. It is a deep, rushing sound, like a river. It is a powerful sound. It reminds you that fire is a living thing. It needs to be fed. It needs to be watched. If you respect it, it keeps you alive. If you ignore it, it dies, and the cold returns. You feel a sense of peace settling over you. The walk across the frozen field feels like a long time ago. The cold wind on the drawbridge is just a memory. Here, in the golden circle of the fire, time seems to slow down. You are standing in the exact same spot where people stood 500 years ago. They felt the same cold. They walked towards the same fire. They rubbed their frozen hands together, just like you are doing now. The fire connects you to them. It is the same heat. You take off your heavy gloves. You tuck them into your belt. You rub your bare hands together. The skin feels dry and warm. You touch your face. Your cheeks are burning hot from the fire, but the back of your neck still feels a little cool. That is the nature of the Great Hall. You are never perfectly warm all over. You are either roasting on one side or freezing on the other. You have to keep turning, like meat on a spit, to stay comfortable. You look away from the fire, towards the far wall. The stone looks grey and cold. Even with this massive fire roaring in the center, the heat struggles to reach the edges of the room. The castle fights back against the warmth. The stone is stubborn. You decide to leave the safety of the fire circle. You want to see what lies in the shadows at the edge of the room. You want to touch the walls that protect this hall. You step away from the hearth, moving out of the bright light and into the dim, cooler air near the edge of the hall. The sound of the fire fades slightly behind you as you walk towards the silent stone. You walk away from the bright, crackling fire in the center of the room. With every step you take, the air changes. Near the fire, it was hot and dry, stinging your skin, but as you move towards the edge of the great hall, the air turns cool again. It feels heavy and damp, like the air in a cellar or a cave. You reach the far wall. It is lost in the shadows, far from the light of the flames. You can barely see the color of the stone here. It is just a wall of dark gray shapes piled on top of each other. You reach out your hand. You want to feel the strength of the castle. You press your palm flat against the stone block. It shocks you. It is freezing. It feels like you are touching a block of ice, not a wall of a house. The cold is aggressive. It seems to bite into your hand, sucking the warmth right out of your blood. You instinctively want to pull your hand away, but you keep it there. You want to understand what it is like to live inside this rock. After a moment, you notice something else. Your hand is wet. You pull your palm back and look at it in the dim light. Your skin is glistening. There is a thin film of water on your hand. You wipe it on your wool cloak, leaving a dark streak. You look closer at the wall. Now that your eyes have adjusted to the gloom, you can see it. The stone is sweating. Small beads of water are gathering on the surface of the rock. They look like tiny jewels. As you watch, two drops merge together. They get too heavy to hold on. They slide down the face of the stone, leaving a wet, shiny trail behind them. It looks like the wall is crying. This is the great failure of the stone castle. We think of stone as strong and invincible, and it is. It keeps out arrows and enemies, but it cannot keep out the damp. In fact, the stone makes the damp worse. This is a simple piece of science, but for the people living here, it is a daily battle. The walls of this castle are huge. They are 6 or 8 feet thick. That is a lot of rock. In the winter, that rock gets cold all the way through. It becomes a giant block of frozen earth. Inside the hall, the big fire is roaring. It warms the air, but when that warm air floats across the room and touches the freezing cold wall, it turns instantly into water. It is condensation. It is the same thing that happens to a cold drink on a hot day, but in reverse. The castle is sweating on the inside. This means the room is always fighting a battle between the fire and the water. The fire tries to dry the air, but the walls keep making it wet again. You lean in and smell the stone. It has a very specific scent. It smells like wet chalk. It smells like rain on a pavement, but older and mushier. It is the smell of wet dust. It gets into everything. If you lived here, your clothes would always feel a little bit clammy. Your bed sheets would never feel completely dry. You look down at the base of the wall, near the floor. You see a patch of something white and flaky peeling off the stone. You crouch down to look closer. This is a detail of micro-history that tells us how they tried to fix this problem. The wall was once painted. It was covered in lime wash. Lime wash is a simple paint made from crushed, burnt limestone and water. It is bright white. In the medieval times, most castles were not bare grey stone on the inside. They were painted white. This did two things. First, it made the dark rooms much brighter, reflecting the light of the candles. Second, the lime is antiseptic. It kills bugs and cleans the walls. But most importantly, it allows the wall to breathe. It lets the water come out of the stone without trapping it. But here, in the dampest corner of the room, the lime wash is failing. The constant wetness has made it bubble and crack. It is peeling away in soft, powdery flakes. It looks like dead skin shedding from the wall. You touch a piece of the loose white flake. It crumbles to dust between your thumb and finger. It feels soft and chalky. You stand up again. You wipe the white dust from your fingers. You look up towards the ceiling. The wall goes up and up, vanishing into the darkness of the rafters. You can imagine the water seeping into the stone all the way up. It is a slow, silent invasion. The cold does not march in with drums like an army. It seeps in quietly, drop by drop. You stand perfectly still for a moment. You stop moving your feet. You stop rustling your cloak. You just listen. The fire is far away now. Its roar is just a soft hum in the background. In this quiet corner, you can hear the castle itself. Drip. There is a tiny sound of water falling. Drip. It is coming from somewhere above, maybe a leak in the roof, or just the condensation gathering on a beam. It hits the stone floor with a tiny, rhythmic tap. It is a lonely sound. It marks the passing of time. In the silence of the night, that tiny drip sounds loud. It reminds you that nature is always trying to get in. The wind, the rain, the cold, they are always pushing against the stone. You feel a shiver run down your spine. It is not just the cold air. It is the feeling of being surrounded by so much cold, wet rock. You realize why the lords and ladies wear so many layers of clothes. They are not just dressing for style. They are wearing their own personal insulation. They carry their warmth with them because the room cannot hold it. You look back towards the fire. It looks inviting. The golden light is warm and happy. But you cannot stay in the great hall all night. The Lord does not sleep here. The servants sleep here. They will lie down on the wooden benches or curl up in the rushes on the floor, wrapped in their cloaks, trying to get as close to the fire as possible without burning. But you are going deeper. You are going to see where the Lord sleeps. You are going to see if the private rooms are any warmer than this giant, weeping stone barn. You turn away from the wet wall. You walk along the edge of the room, keeping to the shadows. Your boots move silently on the stone flags. You are heading for a small door in the corner of the hall. It is a narrow archway, much smaller than the main entrance. This is the way to the tower stairs. This is the way up. As you walk, you pass a narrow window slit in the wall. It has no glass, just a wooden shutter that is closed tight. You can hear the wind whistling through the cracks in the wood. It makes a high-pitched sighing sound. It is a reminder of the storm waiting outside. You reach the small door. It is made of thick oak planks, dark with age. It has a round iron ring for a handle. You reach out and grab the cold iron. It feels solid and heavy. You press your thumb down on the latch. Click, the door unlatches. You pull it towards you. It swings open with a low groan. Beyond the door, there is darkness. You can see the first few steps of a spiral staircase rising up. The air rushing down the stairs is cold and moving fast. It flows over your feet like a stream of water. You look back one last time at the great hall. The fire is still burning, a lonely beacon in the big room, but you are leaving it behind. You are climbing up into the cold, windy heights of the tower. You step through the doorway and begin the climb. You stand at the bottom of the stone stairs. The heavy door to the great hall is closed behind you. The warm glow of the fire is gone. You are now in the dark throat of the castle. This is the spiral staircase. It is the only way up to the Lord's private rooms. It is a tight, narrow tube carved right inside the thick walls of the tower. You put your hand out to touch the wall. The stone here is rougher than in the hall. It has not been smoothed or polished. It feels sharp and gritty against your palm. You can feel the marks of the chisels that cut it out of the rock hundreds of years ago. It is cold, dry stone. You look up. You cannot see the top. The stairs twist around and disappear into the gloom above. There is no electric light here. There are no gas lamps. There is only a faint, grey light filtering down from small slits in the wall higher up. It is a shadowy, grey world. You take the first step. Immediately, you feel the air moving. In the great hall, the air was still. But here, in this narrow tunnel, the wind is alive. It is rushing down the stairs towards you. It feels like a cold waterfall. This happens because of a simple rule of nature. Hot air rises. The warm air from the fires in the rooms above floats up and out of the chimneys. To replace it, cold air from the roof and the windows gets sucked in and falls down the stairs. The staircase acts like a giant wind tunnel. It blows your hair back from your forehead. It finds the opening at the neck of your cloak and slides down your shirt. It chills you instantly. You shiver and pull your collar up. You have to keep moving to stay warm. You start to climb. 1, 2, 3. The steps are made of stone wedges. They are wide on the outside near the wall, but they get very narrow towards the center. You have to walk carefully. If you step too close to the middle, your boot will only have an inch of stone to rest on. You could slip, so you stick to the outside, keeping your shoulder against the cold wall. As you climb, you notice something about the shape of the stairs. They are turning. You are going round and round in a circle, but they are not just turning anyway. They are turning to the right. They are going clockwise. This is a deliberate choice. It is a piece of military history built into the rock. Almost every castle spiral staircase turns clockwise as it goes up. This is because most people are right-handed. Imagine you are a soldier attacking this castle. You are fighting your way up these stairs. You are holding your sword in your right hand. But because the stairs turn to the right, the central stone pillar is constantly blocking your arm. You cannot swing your sword properly. You are cramped. You are stuck. Now imagine you are the defender. You are standing higher up, looking down. The open space is on your right side. You have plenty of room to swing your sword downwards at the enemy's head. The building itself is fighting on your side. But tonight, there is no fighting. There is only the quiet rhythm of your boots on the stone. Scuff, step, scuff, step. You are breathing a little harder now. The steps are steep. The rise of each step is high, maybe 8 or 9 inches. It is like climbing a ladder made of rock. Your legs start to feel heavy. The wool of your cloak feels like a weight dragging you back. You reach out with your left hand to steady yourself. In the center of the spiral, there is a stone column. This is called the knoll. It is the spine of the staircase. You touch it. It feels different from the rough outer wall. The stone here is smooth. It feels almost like glass. This smoothness tells a story of time. For hundreds of years, people have walked up these stairs. Lords, ladies, servants, and soldiers. Every time they climbed, they put their hand on this central pillar to steady themselves, just like you are doing now. Millions of hands have touched this spot. The oils from their skin and the friction of their palms have polished the stone. They have worn away the rough edges. You are touching a memory of all the people who have lived here before. It is a connection to the past that you can feel with your fingertips. You keep climbing. The spiral seems endless. You feel a little bit dizzy from turning and turning in the dark. Suddenly, your foot hits something unexpected. Thump, you stumble forward. Your heart jumps in your chest. You catch yourself on the wall before you fall. You look down at your feet in the dim light. You see the step that tripped you. It is higher than the others. The other steps were all the same height, but this one is an inch taller. You might think this was a mistake. You might think the stonemason got lazy or measured wrong, but you would be wrong. This is a trip step. It is a nasty little trick. The people who live in the castle know this step is here. Their bodies have learned it. They lift their feet a little higher without even thinking about it. They run up and down these stairs in the dark with no problem. But a stranger, an enemy running up the stairs in the heat of a battle, he does not know. He will trip. He will fall. And in that moment of stumbling, the defender at the top has the advantage. It is a trap made of stone. You shake your head. Even the stairs are a weapon here. You are careful now. You lift your feet high for every step. You pause for a moment to catch your breath. You stop climbing. You stand still in the middle of the spiral. It is very quiet here. The thick stone walls block out the sound of the wind outside. You cannot hear the fire in the hall anymore. You are suspended in the silence of the tower. You listen. You can hear your own breathing. It sounds loud in the tight space. In, out. You can hear the blood rushing in your ears. Then, you hear the wind again. But it is not a roar. It is a low moan. It is vibrating through the stone loophole window above you. It sounds like the castle is humming a low note. It is a lonely, ghostly sound. You look up towards the source of the sound. You see a narrow slit in the wall. It is an arrow loop. It is just a thin vertical line of light, no wider than your hand. You climb a few more steps until you are level with it. You lean in to look out. Through the thick stone, you can see a slice of the outside world. You see the dark blue sky. You see the moon, which has risen now. It is silver and bright. It lights up the frozen fields far below. From this height, the world looks peaceful. The trees look like tiny bushes. The river looks like a ribbon of silver foil. But as you put your face near the opening, the cold hits you. The wind is screaming through that tiny slit. It feels like an ice pick stabbing at your skin. It makes your eyes water instantly. You pull back. You turn your face away from the bitter night. You are glad to be inside, even in this drafty stairwell. You turn back to the climb. You are almost there. You can see a landing ahead. The stairs stop twisting. They open up into a small, flat platform of stone. There is a wooden door there. It is smaller than the door to the great hall, but it looks more polished. The wood is dark oak, rubbed with oil. The iron hinges are shaped like decorative scrolls. This is the entrance to the solar. The solar is the private living room and bedroom of the Lord and his family. The word comes from the sun, sol, because these rooms were usually built high up to catch the sunlight during the day. But tonight, there is no sun. There is only the hope of warmth behind that door. You reach the landing. Your legs are tired from the climb. The muscles in your calves are burning a little. It feels good to stand on flat ground again. You brush the dust from your cloak. You fix your collar. You are about to enter the most private part of the castle. Downstairs was for everyone. This upstairs world is only for the few. You can see a light coming from underneath the door. It is a flickering, golden line on the stone floor, and you can smell something wonderful. It is not just wood smoke this time. It is the smell of beeswax. It is a sweet, honey smell. It smells cleaner and richer than the hall below. You reach out your hand to the iron latch. The metal is cold, but not as freezing as the wall. You press your thumb down, clack, the latch lifts. You push the door open. It swings inward silently, drifting on well-oiled hinges. The cold wind of the stairwell pushes you from behind, urging you forward. You step over the threshold. You leave the vertical tunnel of stone behind. You step into the solar, ready to see how the wealth is slept. You step fully into the room and push the heavy oak door shut behind you. Thump. You slide the iron bolt across to lock it. The moment the door clicks shut, the feeling of the world changes. The rushing wind from the spiral staircase is gone. The cold draft that was tickling your neck disappears. The noise of the castle, the distant clatter of the kitchen, the mumble of the guards, the howling wind outside, all of it is cut off. You are standing in silence. You are standing in the solar. This room feels different from anywhere else you have been tonight. The great hall downstairs felt like a barn. It was huge, echoey, and full of shadows. The courtyard felt like a frozen field. But this room feels like a home. It is much smaller than the hall. The ceiling is lower. The walls are closer together. It feels human-sized. You feel like you can breathe here without the air freezing in your lungs. This is the Lord's private room. In the old days, everyone lived together in the big hall. The Lord, the lady, the servants, and the dogs all slept in one big pile near the fire. But as time went on, people wanted privacy. They wanted a place to talk, to read, or just to sit without 100 pairs of eyes watching them. So they built the solar. The name comes from the word sol, which means sun. These rooms were usually built on the south side of the tower to catch the best light during the day. But tonight, there is no sun. There is only the warm, steady glow of candles and a smaller fireplace. You take a few steps into the room. You look down at your feet. Downstairs, the floor was rough flagstones or packed dirt. But here, the floor is beautiful. You are walking on tiles. They are small, square tiles made of fired clay. They are not just plain red bricks. They are decorated. You crouch down to look at one closely in the candlelight. It has a pattern on it. You see a yellow lion on a red background. The tile next to it has a flower. The one after that has a geometric shape, like a spinning star. This is a specific piece of microhistory. These are called encaustic tiles. They were very expensive. To make them, the tile maker had to stamp a pattern into the wet red clay, and then fill the hole with white liquid clay. When it was baked, the colors locked together. It was a way of showing off. It showed that the person living here had money. But more than that, it made the floor cleaner. Dirt does not stick to these smooth tiles like it does to rough stone. You can sweep them. You can wash them. It makes the room feel civilized. You stand up again. The tiles are beautiful, but they are still stone. They are still cold. You can feel the chill coming through the soreness of your boots. The warmth in this room is better than the stairs, but it is fragile. You have to stay near the heat to feel it. You look at the walls. In the great hall, the walls were bare, sweating stone. But here, the stone is hidden. The lower half of the wall is covered in wood. It is called wainscoting. It is made of panels of oak, dark and polished. You walk over and touch the wood. It feels smooth and room temperature. It does not suck the heat out of your hand like the stone did. This wood is not just for decoration. It is insulation. It creates a barrier between you and the freezing rock. Behind those wooden boards, there is a small gap of air. That air gap stops the damp from coming into the room. It stops the sweating you saw downstairs. The wood keeps the room dry. And in a stone castle, dry means warm. The room smells different, too. Downstairs smelled of smoke and old meat. Here, the air is sweet. You smell dried lavender. You smell rose petals. You look around and see bunches of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling beams. They are tied with little pieces of string. They look like withered flowers, brown and crispy. But when you walk past them, the movement of the air releases their scent. They are there to freshen the air. Medieval people knew that bad smells could make you sick. They believed that sweet smells kept you healthy. So the solar is always perfumed. It smells like a garden in the summer, preserved and dried for the winter. You walk deeper into the room. It is cluttered with furniture. In the hall, there were just benches and tables. But here, there are personal things. You see a heavy wooden chest sitting at the foot of the bed. It is a massive box, bound with iron straps. It looks strong enough to stand on. This is where the Lord keeps his clothes and his valuables. There were no wardrobes back then. Everything you owned went into a chest. It was your suitcase and your bank vault all in one. You see a chair, a real chair. This might sound simple, but in the Middle Ages, chairs were rare. Most people sat on benches or stools. Only the most important person got a chair with a back and armrests. That is where we get the phrase chairman. It means the man in the chair. The chair is made of dark wood, with a high back to stop the drafts. It has a cushion on it made of red velvet. You reach out and touch the velvet. It is soft and thick. It feels luxurious against your rough skin. It is a tiny island of softness in a world of hard edges. You walk to the center of the room and stop. You just stand there. The silence here is heavy. It is a thick, velvet silence. You are high up in the tower, far away from the mud and the noise. You feel safe. You feel protected. The walls of the tower are 6 feet thick here. Nothing can get to you. No enemy, no noise, and hopefully, no cold. But even here, you can see the signs of the struggle against the winter. You see a fur rug thrown over a stool. You see a thick wool blanket folded on the chest. Every object in the room has a job, and that job is to keep you warm. You notice the light is different here. There are no torches on the walls. Torches are messy. They drop black tar and make too much smoke. Instead, there are candles. You see a candlestick made of silver standing on a small table. It holds a tall, white candle. The flame is steady and bright. It does not flicker wildly like the fire downstairs. It is a calm light. You watch the flame for a moment. It is shaped like a teardrop. It is blue at the bottom and yellow at the top. It burns silently, melting the wax slowly. A single drop of hot wax rolls down the side of the candle and hardens instantly as it hits the cooler air. This is the sanctuary. This is the place where the armor is taken off. This is where the Lord becomes just a man trying to sleep through the night. But as you stand there, you feel a tiny current of air brush past your ankle. You look down. The bottom of your cloak is moving slightly. Even in this protected room, the wind is finding a way in. It is invisible, but it is here. It is hunting for any gap, any crack, any hole. You follow the draft. You turn your head towards the wall. You see the window. It is not a glass window like you have at home. It is a hole in the stone, covered by a wooden shutter, and that is where the battle is being fought right now. The wind is pushing against the wood, trying to burst in. You decide to go closer. You want to see how they seal the castle against the storm outside. You leave the center of the room and walk towards the dark rectangle of the window. The candle flame bows slightly as you move, pointing the way towards the source of the cold. You walk across the tiled floor towards the far wall of the solar. The candlelight flickers behind you, casting your shadow long and thin against the stones. As you get closer to the wall, you feel the temperature drop. The warm air of the room struggles to reach this far. You are standing in front of the window, but it does not look like a window you would see today. There is no clear pane of glass. There is no view of the outside world. There is only a heavy wooden barrier blocking the hole in the wall. Because the castle walls are so thick, maybe 6 or 8 feet here in the tower, the window is set deep inside a recess. It is like a small cave carved into the side of the room. You have to step into this little alcove to get close to the opening. You step in. Immediately, you are surrounded by cold stone on 3 sides. It feels like stepping into a refrigerator. On either side of the window, built right into the stone of the wall, there are 2 stone benches. They face each other. These are called window seats. This is a lovely piece of design. During the day, when the sun is shining, this is the brightest place in the castle. The lord or lady would sit here on these stone benches, perhaps on a cushion, to read or so. They would use the natural light coming through the open window. It was their reading nook. But tonight, you would not want to sit here. The stone bench is freezing. You touch it with your hand. It sucks the heat right out of your fingers. It is too cold to sit on. Tonight, this alcove is just a tunnel for the wind. You look at the thing blocking the night. It is a set of wooden shutters. They are made of thick oak planks, darkened with age and oil. They are not smooth or delicate. They are rough and heavy. They look more like a door than a window. And that makes sense. In the old language, the word window comes from wind eye. It was literally an eye in the wall to let the wind and air in. When you wanted the wind to stop, you had to shut the eye. You reach out and touch the wood of the shutter. It is vibrating. You can feel the storm pushing against it from the outside. Thump, thump. The wind is hammering on the other side, trying to break in. The wood shudders under your hand. It feels like a living thing is trapped out there, demanding to be let in. You look at the iron hinges. They are rusted and black. They are bolted deep into the stone. They hold the heavy wood in place. Across the middle of the shutters, there is a thick wooden bar. It sits into iron brackets. It locks the shutters tight. It looks strong, but it is not perfect. You lean in closer. You put your face near the gap where the 2 wooden shutters meet. You can feel it. A thin, sharp knife of cold air is slicing through the crack. It is a draft. It hits your cheek like a splash of ice water. It makes you blink. The wind is so strong that it forces the air through the tiny gaps in the wood. It whistles softly. SSSSSs. It sounds like a snake hissing in the corner of the room. This is the reality of the medieval night. There is no hermetic seal. There is no rubber stripping to keep the air out. There is just wood against stone. And the air always finds a way. You might wonder, why is there no glass? We are used to glass windows. We take them for granted. But in the Middle Ages, glass was incredibly rare. It was precious. It was used for the great cathedrals to make stained glass pictures of saints. It was used for the king's palaces. But for a regular lord in a castle, glass was too expensive to put in every window. Glass was also hard to make in big, flat sheets. If you had glass, it was usually small, diamond-shaped pieces held together with lead. It was fragile. A heavy storm could smash it. So, for a window facing the wild weather, wood was safer. Wood was stronger. Sometimes, if they wanted some light without opening the shutters, they would use something else. They would take a piece of linen cloth or thin animal skin, like parchment. They would soak it in oil or animal fat until it became greasy and stiff. Then they would stretch it over a wooden frame and put it in the window. The oil made the cloth semi-transparent. It let a gloomy, yellow light filter through. It stopped the wind, mostly, but it was not clear. You could not look out and see the trees. It just turned the world into a blur of light and shadow. But tonight, even the oiled cloth would not be enough. Tonight, you need the solid oak. You watch the candle flame near the window. You brought the candlestick with you. The flame is going wild. It is dancing and jumping. It leans away from the window, blown by the invisible stream of cold air leaking in. It flickers so much it almost goes out. You cup your hand around the flame to protect it. You feel the cold air on the back of your hand. It is a strange sensation. Your palm is hot from the candle, but the back of your hand is freezing from the draft. You are caught between the fire and the frost. You look at the bottom of the window frame. There is a small pile of something white there. You look closer. It is snow. The wind has forced tiny snowflakes through the crack under the shutter. They have drifted in and landed on the stone sill inside the room. They are not melting. The stone is so cold that the snow sits there, crisp and white, inside the bedroom. It is a stark reminder. The outside world is right there. It is only 2 inches away. Just a plank of wood separates you from the freezing death of the winter night. You appreciate the shutter more now. It is ugly. It is rough. It blocks out the view. But it is a shield. It is taking the beating so you don't have to. It stands there, hour after hour, holding back the gale. You step back out of the alcove. You step back onto the warm tiles of the solar floor. You feel the temperature rise again as you move away from the stone wall. You look back at the dark hole of the window recess. It looks like a mouth that is trying to blow cold air into the room. You are glad to be away from it. You turn your attention back to the room. The wind is still rattling the shutters behind you rattle, thud, but it is a background noise now. It is the sound of the storm staying where it belongs, outside. You look across the room. You see a warm glow against the opposite wall. It is not a candle. It is a fire. But it is not the big bonfire of the great hall. It is something different. It is a proper fireplace. You walk towards it, eager to get the chill of the window off your skin. You want to see how the Lord heated his private room without filling it with smoke. You head towards the hearth. You turn your back on the cold, rattling window. You leave the drafty alcove behind. You walk across the floor, your boots making a soft clicking sound on the painted tiles. You are heading towards the light. You are heading towards the best thing in the room. You are standing in front of the fireplace. This might seem normal to you. In your world, fireplaces are common. But here, in a medieval castle, this is a piece of high technology. This is a luxury. Remember the great hall downstairs. The fire, there was just a pile of wood on the floor in the middle of the room. The smoke went everywhere. It filled the air. It stung your eyes. It made you cough. But here, in the Lord's private room, things are different. The fire is not in the middle of the floor. It is tucked neatly into the wall. It is like a glowing cave carved out of the stone. You stand close to it. You can feel the heat radiating out. It warms your legs through your trousers. It warms the front of your tunic. It feels like a solid wall of heat pushing against you. You look at how it works. It is very clever. Above the fire, there is a tunnel built right inside the thick stone wall. This is the chimney. It acts like a vacuum. It sucks the smoke up and away. It carries the grey fumes up through the tower and spits them out into the night sky, far above the roof. Because of this hidden tunnel, the air in the room is clear. You can take a deep breath. You do not smell thick, choking smoke. You only smell a faint, pleasant scent of burning wood. It is clean. It allows you to stand right next to the flames without your eyes watering. You look at the structure of the fireplace. It is built to impress. Sticking out from the wall, hanging over the fire, is a large stone shelf. It slopes upwards. This is called the hood. It is made of heavy grey stone. It looks like a stone tent projecting into the room. Its job is to catch any stray smoke that tries to escape into the bedroom. It grabs the smoke and guides it into the chimney tunnel. But because this is the Lord's room, the hood is not just a plain slab of rock. It is decorated. You lean in to look at the side of the hood. The stone is supported by 2 brackets, one on the left and one on the right. These are called corbels. A corbel is a block of stone that sticks out of a wall to hold weight. But here, the stonemason has had some fun. He has carved the stone block into a shape. You look at the one on the left. It is carved to look like the head of a lion. It has a mane of stone hair. Its mouth is open in a silent roar. But over the years, the sharp edges of the carving have softened. The nose of the lion is smooth and shiny. It looks like people have been rubbing it for luck, or maybe just resting their hand there while they warm themselves. You reach out and touch the lion's head. The stone is warm. It has absorbed the heat of the fire for hours. It feels like a hot stone you might find on a beach on a sunny day. It is comforting to touch. It is a friendly face in the stone room. You look into the fire itself. It is smaller than the bonfire in the hall. It does not roar. It whispers. The logs are smaller here. They are cut neatly. They are apple wood or ash, woods that burn slow and sweet. They are stacked in a neat pyramid. The flames are lazy. They lick around the wood in slow, curling shapes. They are blue at the base and deep orange at the tips. They throw a soft, golden light into the room. You watch the back of the fireplace. Behind the fire, the stone wall is black with soot, but in front of the stone, there is an iron plate standing up. This is a fire back. It is a heavy, thick square of cast iron. It has a picture molded into it, maybe a coat of arms or a shield, but it is hard to see through the soot. This iron plate is a simple heater. The fire heats up the iron. The iron gets incredibly hot. Then, the iron radiates that heat back out into the room. It acts like a radiator. Even if the fire dies down a little, that big block of hot iron will keep pushing warmth into the room for hours. You hold your hands out to the fire again. You rub them together. You watch the shadows of your fingers dancing on the stone floor. They are long and spindly, moving as the flames move. It is quiet here. The wind is still beating against the shutters across the room, but here by the fire, you feel protected. You are in a bubble of warm, still air. You listen to the wood burning. Snap! A tiny spark jumps out and lands on the stone hearth. It glows bright red for a second, like a tiny star, and then it fades to grey ash. Hiss! A drop of sap boils out of the end of a log. It sounds like a tiny kettle boiling. You stare into the deep red center of the fire. The coals are glowing with a steady, pulsing light. It looks like a landscape. You can imagine tiny mountains and valleys made of glowing red charcoal. It is easy to get lost in it. You can stand here for a long time, just watching the heat breathe. This fireplace changes the whole feeling of the room. Downstairs, the fire was for everyone. It was public, but this fire is private. It is intimate. It is just for the people in this room. It makes the stone castle feel like a home. It creates a hearth. That is an old word that means more than just a fireplace. It means a center. It means a place of family and safety. You feel the heat sinking into your bones. Your shoulders drop. The tension of the cold walk across the fields is finally leaving your body. You feel heavy and relaxed, but you cannot sleep standing up, and you cannot sleep on the hard tiles, even if they are pretty. You need to prepare the room for the night. You look down at the floor around the fireplace. It is not bare stone everywhere. You see something scattered on the floor, stretching away from the fire towards the bed. It looks like dried grass. You remember that the floor in the great hall was covered in dirt and old bones. But here, the covering looks different. It looks fresh. It looks green. You step away from the fire. The intense heat on your legs fades, leaving a gentle warmth. You turn your attention to the floor. You are going to see what lies beneath your feet. You are going to walk on the carpet of the Middle Ages. You step away from the warm, glowing cave of the fireplace. The heat on your legs fades a little, but the feeling of safety stays with you. You turn to face the rest of the room. You look down at your feet. In the center of the room, you can see the pretty painted tiles we looked at before. But here, near the bed and the walls, the floor is hidden. It is covered in a thick, loose layer of something green and brown. It looks like someone has brought a hay barn inside the house. You take a step onto it. Crunch, swish. It feels soft under your boots. It gives way a little, like walking on a thick wool rug, but it makes more noise. It rustles. It whispers. It sounds like you are walking through a dry field in late summer. These are called rushes. A rush is a type of plant. It grows in wet places, near rivers and marshes. It is tall and straight, like a thick blade of grass. In the summer, servants go out to the river banks. They cut armfuls of these green stems. Then, they lay them out in the sun to dry until they turn crisp and golden brown. Once they are dry, they are brought inside. They are scattered over the cold stone floors. In the great hall downstairs, the rushes are left there for a long time. They get dirty. They catch the bones from dinner and the mud from boots. But here, in the Lord's private solar, the rushes are different. They are fresh. They are clean. You crouch down to touch them. You pick up a handful of the dried stems. They feel light and brittle. They crackle in your fingers. They are not just dead grass. They are a tool. You see, the stone floor is the enemy of warmth. If you put your bare foot on a stone tile, the cold rock sucks the heat straight out of your body. It is simple science. Stone is conductive. It moves heat away from you. But these dried hollow stems are full of air, and air is a great insulator. When you pile them up thick on the floor, you create a barrier. The cold from the stone cannot get through the layer of trapped air in the rushes. It is like putting a mattress of air between you and the ground. It keeps your feet warm. But there is something else about this floor covering. As you crush the stems in your hand, you release a smell. You bring the handful of dry stalks to your nose. You sniff. It smells incredible. It does not smell like a damp castle. It smells like a summer garden. It smells sweet and floral. You look closely at the mix of plants in your hand. It is not just river grass. Mixed in with the plain rushes, you see dried flowers and leaves. You see tiny purple buds. That is lavender. It has a sharp, clean smell that clears your head. You see feathery green leaves. That is tansy. It smells bitter and strong, almost like medicine. And you see little clusters of creamy white flowers that have turned brown with age. This is meadow sweet. This is a micro-history detail that brings the room to life. Meadow sweet was the favorite floor herb of the Middle Ages. People loved it. When you walk on it and crush the leaves, it smells like honey and almonds. It is a sweet, warm scent that fills the whole room. They called this strewing. To strew means to scatter. These are strewing herbs. They are the air freshener of the medieval world. Remember, people did not bathe every day. They wore heavy wool clothes that they could not wash easily. The dogs slept in the room. The smoke from the fire could be heavy. The castle could get smelly. So, they used the floor to fight the smell. Every time you take a step, your boot crushes a few more dried leaves. Crunch, a tiny puff of scent is released into the air. Walking across the room is like pumping perfume into the air. The more you move, the better the room smells. It is a clever system. The floor is active. It is working for you. You drop the handful of herbs back onto the pile. You stand up and walk slowly across the room towards the bed. Swish, swish, swish. The sound is very comforting. It is a soft, domestic sound. It makes the stone tower feel less like a fortress and more like a cottage. You look at the way the rushes are swept. They are not just thrown down in a mess. Near the edges of the room, they are swept into neat borders. They are thicker near the walls to stop the drafts coming from the skirting boards. In the middle of the room, where people walk the most, the layer is a bit thinner. The servants have to come in every few days to sweep out the old, broken bits and sprinkle fresh ones on top. It is a constant cycle of bringing the outside in. You pause for a moment in the middle of the fragrant carpet. You close your eyes. Imagine living here in the deep winter. Outside, the world is dead. The trees are bare skeletons. The ground is frozen iron. There are no flowers. There is no green grass. Everything is grey and white. But inside this room, you have a memory of summer. You have the smell of the flowers, that bloomed in July. You have the rustle of the dry grass from the river bank. You are walking on a preserved piece of the warm season. It must have been good for the mind. It reminded you that winter would not last forever. It reminded you that the sun would come back and the flowers would grow again. You feel the softness under your heels. It takes the jar out of your step. Walking on stone all day hurts your back and your knees. But walking on rushes is gentle. It is kind to your body. You open your eyes. You look down at the floor one last time. You see a small movement. A tiny beetle is crawling across a stalk of dried lavender. It disappears under a leaf of meadowsweet. The rushes are not just a carpet. They are a little ecosystem. Insects live in there. Sometimes, mice might scuttle through them. It is not perfectly clean by our modern standards. We like our floors to be sterile and polished. But here, nature is welcome. The dry plants, the little bugs, the smell of earth, it is all part of the home. It feels natural. It feels alive. You are halfway across the room now. The fire is behind you, warming your back. The wall with the window is to your left, rattling in the wind. And ahead of you, hanging on the wall, is something huge and colorful. You leave the soft, rustling island of the rushes. You step onto a patch of bare tiles near the wall. The sound of your steps changes from a soft swish back to a hard clack. You approach the wall to see the next layer of defense against the cold. You are going to look at the pictures made of wool. You leave the soft, rustling patch of herbs on the floor. You step back onto the hard tiles near the edge of the room. The air is cooler here, away from the fire. You can feel the chill radiating from the thick stone walls, but you cannot see the stone. The grey rock is hidden. Hanging in front of you, covering the wall from the floor almost to the ceiling, is a massive piece of cloth. It is a tapestry. In the old days, they called these arras, named after a town in France where they were made, but really, it is just a giant, heavy rug hanging on the wall. You stand back to look at it. It is enormous. It is probably 10 feet high and 15 feet wide. It covers the cold stone completely. It is a picture woven out of thread. You look at the scene. It shows a deep green forest. There are tall trees with dark leaves. In the middle, there is a stagger male deer with big antlers. He's standing by a stream of blue water. There are little hunters in the background with bows and arrows, but they look small and far away. The colors are not bright and shiny like a computer screen. They are soft and muted. They are made from natural things. The green comes from plants. The red comes from crushed roots or bugs. Over the years, the smoke from the fire and the sunlight from the window have faded them. The forest looks misty and dreamlike. It looks like a memory of a hunt, not a real one. You step closer. You want to feel the texture. You reach out and run your hand down the fabric. It is rough. It feels like the back of a sheep. This is not made of soft cotton or silky satin. It is made of wool. Thick, coarse wool. This is important. Wool is a magical material for the winter. It is heavy. It traps heat. And it is tough. You feel the weight of it. You grab the edge of the tapestry and try to lift it. It is incredibly heavy. It feels like lifting a thick gym mat. It takes effort to pull the corner away from the wall. As you lift it, a puff of cold air falls out. You look behind the tapestry. There is a gap. The cloth does not hang flat against the stone. It hangs on wooden hooks or a rail near the ceiling, leaving a space of about 2 or 3 inches between the wool and the wall. This space is the secret. Just like the rushes on the floor, the tapestry creates an air pocket. The freezing cold stone wall chills the air directly touching it. That cold air gets trapped in the gap. It cannot get into the room because the thick wool blocks it. Meanwhile, the warm air from the fire hits the front of the tapestry. The wool stays warm. So, instead of living inside a box of ice, the Lord lives inside a box of wool. The room is lined with a soft, Warm skin. You let the heavy cloth drop back into place. Thump. It hits the wall with a dull, muffled sound. That sound tells you something else about why these are here. Stone rooms are noisy. If you clap your hands in an empty stone hall, the sound bounces around. Clack, clack, clack. It echoes. It is harsh and sharp. It makes it hard to relax. But the tapestry kills the echo. The soft wool soaks up the sound. It swallows the noise. You listen to the room now. It is hushed. Your breathing sounds soft. The crackle of the fire is gentle. The room feels smaller and more intimate because the sound is deadened. It feels like being inside a padded box. It is a quiet place made for sleeping. You stand there, looking at the stag in the green forest. You notice a small movement. The tapestry is moving. It is not a big movement. It is a slow, gentle ripple. A wave travels across the fabric, starting from the left and rolling to the right. The stag looks like he is breathing. The trees look like they are swaying in a breeze. This might look spooky at first, like a ghost is hiding behind the curtain. But you know what it is. It is the wind outside. The wind is pushing through the cracks in the stones. It is blowing into that gap behind the tapestry. The pressure builds up, and it pushes the heavy cloth out into the room. Then the pressure drops, and the cloth falls back. The walls are breathing. It is a comforting rhythm. It is like the room is inhaling and exhaling. It reminds you that the tapestry is doing its job. It is catching the wind. It is taking the hit, so you don't have to. The draft stays behind the wall, and you stay warm in front of it. You look at the bottom edge of the tapestry. It does not quite touch the floor. There is a small gap of a few inches. This is to stop the wool from wicking up dampness from the ground or getting dirty from the rushes. You can see the little tassels of thread hanging down. They tremble slightly in the air currents near the floor. You think about the work that went into this. To make a tapestry this big took a team of weavers months, maybe years. They sat at a great loom, passing the shuttle back and forth, knot by knot, row by row. It cost a fortune. A set of tapestries like this cost as much as a warship. That is why they are portable. If the Lord decided to move to another castle for the summer, he would not leave these behind. He would take them down. He would roll them up like giant carpets. He would put them on a cart and take them with him. When he arrived at the next cold, empty stone castle, he would hang them up. Instantly, the cold room would become warm. The echoey room would become quiet. The grey walls would turn into a green forest. These tapestries are his mobile home. They are the wallpaper he can carry in his pocket, well, in his cart. They turn a fortress into a bedroom. You reach out and pat the stag on the neck. The wool feels dry and dusty. It smells of old fabric and smoke. It is a familiar, dusty smell, like an old attic. You feel a sense of gratitude for this heavy blanket on the wall. It is the difference between a prison cell and a palace. It turns the hard rock into a soft nest. You turn away from the wall. The green forest is behind you now, blocking the chill. You look towards the door you came in. You notice another structure made of wood standing near the entrance. It looks like a small wall built inside the room. You are curious. You want to see how they stop the drafts coming from the door. You walk away from the woolly wall and head towards the wooden screen. You turn away from the heavy wool tapestries. You walk back across the room towards the door you entered earlier. You remember the cold wind that rushed up the spiral staircase. You remember how the air tried to follow you into the room when you opened the door. But as you look at the door now, you see something else standing in front of it. It is a wooden wall. This is not a wall that holds up the roof. It is a partition. In the history books, they often call this a screen. It stands about 7 feet high. It does not go all the way to the ceiling. It is built of solid oak panels, dark and glossy in the candlelight. It is anchored to the floor and the side wall, creating a small, L-shaped corridor just inside the entrance. You walk around the edge of the screen. You step into the narrow space between the wooden partition and the actual stone wall of the room. Immediately, the temperature drops. You are now in the airlock. This little corridor is a buffer zone. When someone opens the main door to the spiral stairs, the blast of freezing wind rushes in, but it does not hit the bed. It does not hit the fire. It hits this wooden screen. You can feel it happening right now. You put your hand on the back of the wooden panel. You can feel a faint vibration. The drafts from the hallway are pushing against the wood on the other side. But here, on the inside, the air is still. This is a simple but brilliant invention. It is like the vestibule or the porch on a modern house. It captures the cold air and holds it in this little hallway, stopping it from flooding the main room. You look at the wood itself. It is not rough like the shutters. It is beautifully carved. This is a piece of micro-history. The top of the screen is not just a flat plank. It is cut into a pattern. You trace the shape with your finger. It looks like a row of church windows with pointed arches and little circles. This is called linenfold carving on the panels below. You look closely at the panels. The wood looks like folded cloth. The carpenter has used his chisels to make the hard oak look like a soft, pleated curtain. It is an optical illusion. It makes the hardwood look soft and warm. You stand in the shadow of the screen. The light from the fire and the candles cannot reach here. It is dark. You listen. You hear the latch of the main door rattle slightly. Clink. The wind in the stairwell is trying to get in, but the heavy oak door holds it back, and this screen catches whatever leaks through. You think about the privacy this screen gives. Without it, every time a servant opened the door to bring in wood or food, the whole room would see the Lord in his bed. The wind would blow the papers off his desk. The warmth would be sucked out. But with the screen, the room stays private. The servant opens the door, steps into this little dark corridor, and closes the door behind him. Only then does he walk around the screen and into the light. It keeps the secrets inside and the winter outside. You step back out from behind the partition. You walk back into the main body of the room. As you round the corner of the wood, you feel the warmth hit you again. It is a distinct line. Cold shadow behind the screen. Warm light in the room. The screen is a silent guardian. It stands by the door, taking the brunt of the cold drafts so that the rest of the room can be peaceful. It is a piece of furniture that acts like a wall. You look at the shadow the screen casts on the floor. It is a long, sharp rectangle of darkness stretching across the tiles. It points towards the corner of the room where the light is dim. You follow that shadow with your eyes. In the darker corners of the room, you see tiny points of light. They are flickering. They are struggling against the gloom. You realize that the fire and the single candle you brought are not enough to light this whole space. You need more light. You need to chase away the shadows that gather in the corners. You walk towards one of these small lights. You want to smell the wax. You want to see how they keep the darkness at bay in a time before light bulbs. You head towards the candle stand. You step away from the wooden screen and walk deeper into the room. The shadows here are thick. The fire in the wall is beautiful, but it is low down. Its light can only reach so far. The corners of the room are still swallowed by the dark, but the dark is not empty. It is punctured by small, steady points of yellow light. You walk towards one of them. It is standing on a tall iron stand near the wall. It is a candle. You lean in close. The first thing you notice is not the light. It is the smell. Do you remember the guard at the gatehouse? His lantern smelled of beef fat. It was a greasy, heavy smell called tallow. It smelled like a cooking pot that had been left unwashed. That is the smell of a poor man's light. But this candle is different. You close your eyes and breathe in. It smells sweet. It smells like a summer meadow. It smells of honey and flowers. This is beeswax. This is a luxury item. In the Middle Ages, burning a beeswax candle was like burning money. These candles were expensive. They were usually saved for the church, to be burned on the altar for God. But here, in the Lord's private room, they burn them for comfort. The smell fills the room. It mixes with the scent of the lavender on the floor and the wood smoke from the fire. It creates a warm, golden atmosphere. It makes the air feel rich. You open your eyes and look at the candle itself. It is not white like a modern paraffin candle. It is a deep, rich yellow color, like old gold. It looks soft. You can see where the wax has dripped down the side, forming long, smooth tears that have hardened on the iron stand. You look at the stand. It is not a cup that holds the candle. It is a spike. This is a micro-history detail. This type of holder is called a pricket. It is a simple iron rod with a sharp point on top. You do not push the candle into a hole. You jam it down onto the spike. It holds the candle firm. You watch the flame. It is a living thing. It is shaped like a tiny leaf of fire. The bottom is blue, where the heat is hottest. The middle is orange. The tip is a bright, blinding yellow. It flickers, flicker, flicker, every time the wind rattles the shutters or pushes the tapestry. The air in the room moves. The flame knows it. It dances to the rhythm of the draft. When it moves, the shadows in the room move with it. You look at the wall behind the candle. Your own shadow is there. It is huge and distorted. It stretches up to the ceiling. When the candle flickers, your shadow jumps. It looks like it is shivering. The light from the candle is soft. It is not harsh like a light bulb. It blurs the edges of things. It makes the stone walls look softer. It makes the gold thread in the tapestry sparkle for a second, then go dark again. It is a gentle light. It does not hurt your eyes. It is a sleepy light. You notice something else near the candle. Lying on the table next to the stand, there is a pair of metal scissors, but they look strange. They have a little box attached to the blades. These are snuffers. If you blow out a candle, it smokes. It smells bad. It might send a spark flying onto the dry rushes, starting a fire. So, you use the snuffers. You pinch the burning wick inside the little metal box. It cuts off the air and extinguishes the flame instantly, trapping the smoke and the smell inside. It is a clean way to end the light. But you do not want to put the light out yet. The night is dark enough. You hold your hand up near the flame. You can feel a tiny bubble of heat around it. It is not enough to warm the room, but it is enough to warm your fingers if you get close. It is a psychological warmth. Just seeing the golden light makes you feel less cold. You look around the room. There are 3 or 4 of these candles burning. They are like little stars brought down to earth. They create a circle of safety. Outside that circle, in the corners and under the bed, the darkness is waiting. But here, by the beeswax flame, you can see. You realize how precious light was back then. When the sun went down, the world effectively stopped. To have light meant you could keep living. You could read. You could talk. You could sew. You were stealing time back from the night. The candle burns silently. It consumes itself to give you light. The wax melts, turns to liquid, travels up the wick, and turns into flame. It is a slow, quiet magic. You turn away from the hypnotic flame. The smell of honey lingers in your nose. The room feels a little brighter now that you have studied the light. But standing here has made you thirsty. The dry heat of the fire and the dust from the tapestries have made your throat dry. You see a jug sitting on a small table near the fire. Steam is rising from it. You walk towards the table. You are going to taste the winter. You are going to see what they drank to keep the cold out of their bellies. You step closer to the small wooden table sitting near the hearth. The fire is crackling softly to your right, casting a warm orange glow over the wood. But your attention is on the jug sitting on the table. It is an earthenware jug, made of thick, brown clay. It looks heavy and round. It has a simple handle on the side. It is not a fancy silver pitcher, like you might see on a dining table. This is a practical jug. It has been placed here, close to the fire, for a reason. The heat from the flames keeps the liquid inside warm. You can see a faint wisp of steam rising from the top of the jug. It curls up into the air, twisting like a grey ribbon, before it vanishes into the shadows of the room. You reach out and pick up the cup sitting next to it. It is made of pewter. Pewter is a grey metal, softer than iron, but heavier than tin. It feels cool and smooth against your fingers. It has a dull shine to it, like a cloudy mirror. You lift the heavy clay jug. It feels warm to the touch. You tilt it over the cup. Glug, glug, glug. The liquid pours out. It is dark red, almost purple. It looks thick and rich, like syrup. As it fills the cup, the steam hits your face, and then the smell hits you. It is a powerful smell. It rushes into your nose and wakes up your senses. It does not smell like plain wine. It smells like a spice market. It smells like Christmas. You smell cinnamon. It is sweet and woody. You smell cloves, sharp and pungent. You smell ginger, with its hot, peppery kick. And underneath it all, you smell the deep, fruity scent of the warm red wine. This is not just a drink. It is a potion. In the medieval world, they called this Hippocras. It is a simple recipe, but a very special one. They took the red wine, which might be a bit sour or old, and they mixed it with sugar and spices. Then they heated it up. You have to remember, in this time, sugar was incredibly rare. It did not come in big paper bags from the supermarket. It was a luxury spice imported from far away. It came in hard, cone-shaped blocks that had to be chipped with a hammer. To put sugar in your wine was a sign that you were rich. It was a way of drinking your wealth. And the spices were even more precious. Cinnamon and cloves came from the other side of the world. They traveled on camels across deserts and on ships across oceans to get to this cold stone castle. They were worth their weight in gold. So, holding this cup is like holding a treasure chest. You wrap your hands around the bowl of the pewter cup. The metal warms up instantly. The heat from the wine transfers into your palms. It feels wonderful. Your fingers were getting stiff from the cold air near the window, but now the warmth is seeping back into them. You just stand there for a moment, holding the hot cup like a hand warmer. You lift the cup to your lips. You take a sip. The taste is intense. It is very sweet, almost like honey. Then comes the heat. It is not just the heat of the temperature. It is the heat of the spices. The ginger and the pepper burn your tongue in a pleasant way. It tingles. You swallow. You feel the warm liquid sliding down your throat. It leaves a trail of heat all the way down to your stomach. It feels like you have swallowed a small piece of the fire. This is why they drink it. The medieval doctors had a theory about the body. They believed that in the winter, the body's inner fire could go out. The cold dampness of the castle could get inside you and make you sick. They believed you needed to stoke your internal engine. Spices were considered hot and dry. They were the opposite of the cold and wet winter. So, drinking Hippocras was not just for fun. It was medicine. It was a way to dry out the damp and warm up the blood before you went to sleep. You take another sip. The warmth spreads from your stomach out to your chest. You feel your shoulders relaxing. The shiver that was hiding in your back disappears. You look at the liquid in the cup again. It is not perfectly clear. There is a little bit of sediment at the bottom. It looks a bit cloudy. This tells you about how it was made. This is a micro-history detail hidden in the name. The name Hippocras comes from a famous ancient doctor called Hippocrates, but it is named after him for a specific reason. To make this drink, the servants would mix the wine and spices in a big bowl. Then, to filter out the big chunks of cinnamon bark and ginger root, they would pour it through a cloth bag. This bag was shaped like a long cone or a sleeve. They called it Hippocrates' sleeve. It was the medieval version of a coffee filter. The wine would drip through the cloth, leaving the spices behind. The fact that your drink is a little cloudy means that the sleeve was a bit loose, or maybe the servant squeezed it too hard to get every last drop of the precious liquid. You swirl the wine in the cup. The pewter is getting hot now. You can't hold it too tight. You look over the rim of the cup at the cold, dark window across the room. The wind is still rattling the shutters. Thump, thump. You know it is freezing out there. You know the moat is turning to ice. You know the fields are white with frost. But in here, you have the fire on your skin and the spiced wine in your belly. You have built a fortress of warmth against the winter. You finish the drink. You tilt your head back to get the last sweet drop. The spices leave a strong aftertaste in your mouth, spicy and sugary. It lingers on your tongue. You put the empty pewter cup back on the table next to the clay jug. Clink. The drink has done its job. You feel heavy. You feel sleepy. The sugar gives you a little rush of energy, but the warm wine makes your eyelids feel thick. It is time to think about sleep. You turn away from the table. You look towards the center of the room. Dominating the space, rising up like a wooden island in the sea of rushes, is the most important piece of furniture in the castle. It is the bed, but this is not like a bed you would buy today. It is a massive structure. It looks like a small house built inside the room. It is huge, high, and draped in fabric. It is the final destination of your journey tonight. You walk towards it. Your feet rustle through the herbs on the floor. You are ready to see where the Lord lays his head. You are ready to explore the great bed. You leave the small table with the empty pewter cup. The taste of the sweet, spicy wine is still warm in your mouth. You feel a heaviness in your legs, a slow, comfortable weight that tells you it is time to rest. You turn towards the center of the room. There, rising out of the sea of dried rushes, is the bed. To call it a bed seems almost too simple. It is not like the beds you know. It is not a metal frame on wheels. It is not a simple box spring sitting on the floor. This is a monument. It is a massive structure made of wood. It looks less like a piece of furniture and more like a small building that has been constructed inside the room. You walk towards it. It is huge. It is wide enough for 3 or 4 people to lie down side by side. It is long enough for a giant. It dominates the solar. Everything else in the room, the chair, the chest, the fireplace, seems small compared to this wooden beast. You reach out and touch the corner post. It is a thick pillar of wood, as wide as your thigh. It is made of oak. Oak is the king of the forest. It is slow growing, hard, and incredibly strong. This wood was lightly cut from a tree that was hundreds of years old. You can feel the strength in it. It feels solid, like touching a stone column, but it has the warmth of wood. The wood is dark, almost black. Over the years, it has been rubbed with oil and wax to protect it. It shines in the candlelight. It has a deep, glossy luster. It looks like dark chocolate. You look closely at the post. It is not just a smooth pole. It has been carved. This is a detail that shows the wealth of the Lord. A master carpenter spent weeks working on this one post. He used sharp chisels to cut shapes into the hard oak. You trace the patterns with your finger. You feel vines twisting up the wood. You feel leaves and bunches of grapes. Near the top, there is a face carved into the wood. It is a lion, roaring silently. The details are worn down a little from years of people touching it, but you can still feel the mane and the eyes. This bed frame was built to last. It was not bought from a shop to be thrown away in 10 years. It is an heirloom. When the old lord died, he would leave this bed to his son in his will. Sometimes, the bed was the most valuable thing in the whole castle, worth more than the gold or the horses. It was the center of the family's life. You look at the bottom of the bed. You notice something very important. It is high. The mattress does not sit near the floor. The frame holds the sleeping platform high up in the air. It is probably 3 or 4 feet off the ground. It is so high that you could not just sit down on it. You would have to climb up. There is a reason for this. In fact, there are 2 reasons. The first reason is the cold. Remember the draft you felt coming from the window. Remember the cold air spilling down the stairs. Cold air is heavy. It sinks. It flows across the floor like an invisible river. If you slept on a low bed or on a mattress on the floor, you would be sleeping in that river of cold air. You would freeze. But by lifting the bed high up on these thick legs, the sleeper is raised above the draft. They are sleeping in the warmer air that collects higher up in the room. It is a simple way to stay warm. You are literally rising above the problem. The second reason is a bit less pleasant to think about. It is the visitors. The floor of a castle is never perfectly sealed. We saw the rushes earlier. Mice love rushes. Rats love the dark corners. Even in a clean castle, there might be little creatures running across the floor at night. If your bed is on the floor, you're part of their highway. But if your bed is high up on smooth, polished legs, it is much harder for a mouse to climb up. The bed is a safe island. It is a fortress against the cold and the critters. You look down at the floor next to the bed. Because it is so high, there is a piece of furniture to help you get in. It is a wooden step. It looks like a small box. You step on the box, and then you climb into the bed. It makes going to bed feel like an event. You are ascending to your throne. You walk around to the side of the bed. You want to see how it is held together. There are no metal screws here. There are no plastic brackets. The whole thing is held together by the wood itself. The side rails are slotted into the corner posts. This is called a mortise and tenon joint. A tongue of wood fits into a hole, and then a wooden peg is hammered in to lock it tight. This is clever engineering. Wood expands when it is hot and damp, and it shrinks when it is cold and dry. If you used iron nails, the moving wood would pull them out or split. But with wooden pegs, the whole bed can breathe. It can move and shift with the seasons without breaking. It creaks a little when you push it creak, but it holds firm. You lift up the edge of the heavy sheet to see what is underneath. You want to see what supports the sleeper. You might expect to see wooden slats, like a modern bed, but you do not. Instead, you see a net. The bottom of the bed frame is a lattice of ropes. Thick, strong ropes are woven across the frame, from side to side and top to bottom. They form a checkerboard pattern. This is the suspension system. If you lay on a solid wooden plank, it would be hard and uncomfortable on your hips and shoulders. But the ropes have a little bit of give. They act like springs. They cradle your body. But there is a problem with rope. Over time, it stretches. If you sleep on it every night, the ropes get loose. They start to sag in the middle. The bed becomes like a hammock. You would roll into the center and wake up with a sore back. So, you need a tool. You see a strange object hanging on the bedpost by a leather strap. It looks like a large wooden T-shape. It is called a bed key or a bed wrench. Every few weeks, the servants strip the bed. They take this wooden key and slot it into the knots of the ropes on the side of the frame. They twist it. They pull the ropes tight again, taking out the slack. They tighten the mesh until it is flat and firm. This is where we get the famous saying, "Sleep tight." It wasn't just a nice wish. It was an instruction. It meant, I hope your bed ropes are tight, so you get a good night's sleep. If the ropes were loose, you slept slack, and you slept badly. You reach out and pluck one of the ropes. Thrum. It makes a low, dull sound, like a bass guitar string. It is tight. The bed is ready. You let the sheet drop back down. You step back to admire the frame again. It is beautiful in the candlelight. The shadows of the carved leaves seem to move on the posts. The dark wood looks warm and inviting. It is a piece of furniture that promises safety. When you are in this bed, You are off the ground. You are away from the drafts. You are supported by strong oak and tight ropes. It is a world within a world, but a wooden frame and some ropes are not enough to keep you warm. You cannot sleep on a net of rope. You need padding. You need softness. You look at the thick, bulging shape that sits on top of the ropes. It looks like a giant sack. It is the mattress, and in a medieval castle, the mattress is not just a piece of foam. It is a bag full of nature. You lean in closer. You want to see what makes the bed soft. You want to see how they turn a wooden frame into a cloud. You stand by the side of the high wooden bed. You have seen the strong oak frame. You have plucked the tight ropes that hold everything up. But you cannot sleep on wood and rope. You need something soft. Resting on top of the rope net is the mattress. In a modern house, a mattress is a perfect, rectangular block. It is made of metal springs and foam. It has sharp corners and flat sides. But this mattress is different. It looks more like a giant pillow. It is a huge, soft sack that bulges in the middle. It does not have sharp edges. It looks round and inviting. You reach out and press your hand into the middle of it. It does not bounce back like a sponge. It sinks. Your hand disappears deep into the softness. When you pull your hand away, the dent stays there. It looks like a cloud that has been captured and stuffed into a bag. You want to know what is inside. You lean in closer. You can smell it. It does not smell like chemicals or plastic. It smells faintly of animals. It has a warm, organic scent. This mattress is filled with feathers. To you, a feather pillow might be normal. But in the medieval world, a whole bed made of feathers was the ultimate luxury. It was a sign that you were at the very top of society. Think about the people sleeping downstairs in the Great Hall. What are they sleeping on? They are sleeping on pallets. These are simple sacks filled with straw. Straw is dried wheat stalks. It is cheap. It is everywhere. But it is not comfortable. When you lie on a straw mattress, it is hard. It is lumpy. And it is loud. Every time you roll over, the dry stalks crunch and crackle near your ear. Scritch, scratch. It sounds like you are sleeping in a barn. And straw breaks down. After a few weeks, it turns to dust. It gets flat and hard. You have to empty the sack and fill it with fresh straw constantly. But here, in the Lord's bed, there is no straw. There is only the softest down. Down is the special layer of feathers found underneath the tough outer wings of a goose or a duck. It is fluffy. It has no hard stem. It is what keeps the bird warm when it floats on freezing water. Imagine how many geese you would need to fill a mattress this big. Hundreds, maybe thousands. It took years to collect enough down for a bed like this. That is why this mattress is a treasure. If the castle were on fire, the servants would try to save this bed before they saved the tables or the chairs. You press your hand into the mattress again. You can feel the feathers shifting inside. They slide over each other silently. There is no crunching. There is only a soft sigh of air escaping from the fabric. WHHHFFFF. The fabric of the mattress itself is special. It is not just a plain sheet. If you used a thin piece of cloth, the sharp ends of the feathers the quills would poke through. They would scratch you while you slept. It would be like sleeping on a bag of needles. So, they use a special cloth called ticking. You look closely at the fabric. It has a pattern of blue and white stripes. It feels thick and stiff. It is woven very tightly, so the threads are jammed close together. But there is another trick. Before they put the feathers in, they rub the inside of the cloth with beeswax or soap. This seals the gaps. It makes the fabric wax-proof. It stops the feathers from poking out, and it stops the dust from getting in. It creates a sealed bag of softness. You run your hand over the blue and white stripes. The cloth feels smooth and cool. It is strong. It has to be, to hold all those feathers in place. But a feather bed has one problem. It has a memory. If you sleep in the same spot every night, the feathers get pushed away. They move to the sides. You end up sleeping in a hard hollow in the middle, with mountains of feathers all around you. The bed gets lumpy. So, every morning, the bed must be made. And it is hard work. You can imagine the servants coming in here when the sun comes up. They cannot just pull the sheets up. They have to wake the bed up. They take big wooden sticks. They stand on either side of the bed, and they beat the mattress. Thwack, thwack. They hit it hard. This is not to punish the bed. It is to fluff it. The beating forces air back inside the mattress. It separates the clumps of feathers. It makes the down expand again. Then, they grab the corners of the heavy sack and shake it. They roll it. They massage the feathers back into the middle. They work until the mattress is a giant, puffy cloud again, high and smooth. It is a daily battle against gravity. But tonight, the battle has been won. The bed looks perfect. It is high and plump. It is waiting for you. You think about the warmth. This is the real secret of the feather bed. Feathers are nature's best insulator. They are designed to trap heat. When a goose flies at high altitudes, where the air is freezing, it does not get cold. Its feathers trap a layer of warm air against its skin. This mattress does the same thing for the Lord. When you climb into this bed, the feathers wrap around you. They mold to the shape of your body. They trap your own body heat. Within minutes, the bed becomes a warm cocoon. The cold air of the room cannot get to you from underneath. You are floating on a cloud of warm air. It is a feeling of total safety. You sink in. The sides of the mattress rise up around you a little bit. You feel held. You notice something else under the mattress. You lift the corner of the heavy ticking. Underneath the feather bed, there is another, thinner mattress. This one feels harder. You squeeze it. It crackles. This is a straw mattress. Why is it there? It is a shock absorber. It sits on the ropes to protect the expensive feather bed. If the feather bed sat directly on the rough ropes, the ropes might rub and wear a hole in the valuable ticking. The straw mattress takes the damage. It also adds one more layer of insulation. It is the foundation for the luxury above. You let the heavy mattress drop back into place. Thump, a tiny cloud of dust motes dances in the candlelight. You look at the bed with new eyes. It is not just a place to sleep. It is a survival tool. In a world without central heating, without electric blankets, without radiators, this bag of feathers is a lifesaver. It is the only place in the castle where you can be truly, completely warm. When the fire dies down in the middle of the night, and the stone walls turn to ice, the person inside this bed will not know. They will be safe in their nest of goose down. But the mattress is just the bottom layer. You cannot just sleep on top of a ticking sack. You need covers. You need a roof over your head. You look up. Rising from the four corners of the bed are the tall wooden posts. They go up high, almost reaching the ceiling, and resting on top of them is a wooden ceiling. It is like a lid for the bed. It is called the tester, or the canopy. You step back to look at the roof of the bed. You want to see why they built a little wooden house inside the bedroom. You want to see the lid that keeps the warmth in. You take your hand off the soft, puffy mattress. You step back a little bit to see the whole bed. You have looked at the legs, the ropes, and the feathers. Now, you lift your eyes. You look up. Rising from the four corners of the bed are the tall wooden posts. They go up and up, reaching high above your head, and sitting on top of them, like a heavy lid on a box, is a wooden roof. This is the canopy. In the old language, it was often called the tester. It is a strange feeling to see a roof inside a room. Usually, the ceiling of the room is enough, but here, in the medieval castle, the bed needs its own protection. You look at the underside of this wooden roof. It is made of dark, polished oak, just like the posts. It is not just flat planks. It is divided into squares with wooden beams. It looks like the ceiling of a library or a church, but in miniature. You might wonder, why build a roof over a bed? There are two reasons. The first reason is about keeping things out. You look up past the wooden canopy, into the shadows of the real ceiling of the room. It is far above you. It is made of stone beams and old timber. It is dark up there. In a castle, the ceiling is not a clean place. It is a busy place. Spiders spin webs in the corners. Dust gathers on the rough beams. Smoke from the fireplace floats up there and turns into soot. Sometimes, small bugs or beetles might live in the old wood, and gravity is always working. If you were sleeping in an open bed, and a piece of old plaster or a spider fell down in the night, it would land right on your face. It would land on your clean white sheets. But the tester stops that. It is a shield. It catches the dust. It catches the falling grit. It keeps the sleeping space underneath it perfectly clean. It ensures that when you open your eyes in the morning, you are not looking at a spider web, but at polished wood. The second reason is about keeping things in. And the most important thing to keep in is heat. You know that heat rises. When you lie in the bed, your body acts like a little heater. You warm up the air around you. If the bed was open to the room, that warm air would float straight up. It would drift away to the cold stone ceiling high above, and you would lose it. You would be constantly heating up the empty space above the bed. But the wooden canopy stops the heat from escaping. The warm air rises from the mattress. It hits the wooden roof of the bed. It has nowhere to go, so it stays there. It gathers in the space between the mattress and the canopy. It creates a pocket of warm air. It is like a bubble. The bed becomes a microclimate. It might be freezing in the rest of the room, but under this wooden lid, the temperature is 5 or 10 degrees warmer. You step closer and look up at the wood again. You notice a detail in the carving. In the very center of the wooden ceiling, directly above where the Lord would sleep, there is a carving. It is a sun. It is a circle with wavy lines radiating out from it. It is painted in gold, though the paint is chipped and faded now. This is a lovely thought. The Lord goes to sleep in the dark winter. The sun has set outside at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The world is black and cold, but when he lies on his back and looks up, the last thing he sees is the sun. It is a promise that the morning will come. It is a symbol of warmth watching over him. The canopy also changes the sound. You step under the edge of the roof. You stand close to the mattress. The sound of the room changes instantly. The crackle of the fire sounds further away. The rattle of the window shutters seems duller. Your own breathing sounds louder. The heavy wood acts like a sound booth. It muffles the noise of the castle. It creates a quiet zone. It feels very intimate in here. You feel enclosed. You are no longer in the big, drafty tower room. You are in a small, wooden cabin. It taps into a very old instinct. It is the same feeling you had as a child when you built a den out of blankets and chairs. It is the feeling of being hidden. It is the feeling of being in a cave. You put your hand on one of the tall posts that holds the roof up. It feels solid as a tree trunk. You give it a little push. It does not move. The structure is heavy and permanent. This bed is a house within a house. The castle protects the room protects the bed, and the bed protects you. It is layer upon layer of safety. But there is one thing missing. You have the floor, the mattress. You have the roof, the canopy. You have the pillars, but the sides are open. You can still feel the air from the room moving around you. The heat trapped by the canopy can still drift out sideways. You need walls. You need to close the box completely. You look at the corners of the canopy. You see a metal rail running all the way around the top, hidden behind a wooden valance, and hanging from that rail are thick bundles of fabric. These are the bed curtains. They are the final piece of the puzzle. They are the walls that will turn this bed into a fortress of warmth. You reach out to touch the heavy cloth. You are ready to shut out the world. You are standing at the corner of the great bed. Above you is the wooden roof. Below you is the soft mountain of feathers. But the sides are still open to the room. The heat can still drift away. You reach out your hand to the heavy bundle of cloth hanging from the corner post. It is gathered up and tied with a cord. You untie the cord. The fabric falls loose. It feels heavy in your hand, like a thick winter coat. These are the bed curtains. In the movies, you often see beds with thin, see-through curtains made of lace or silk. They look pretty, blowing in the wind, but in a real medieval winter, those would be useless. These curtains are made of heavy wool. They are thick and dense. They are lined with another layer of linen on the inside. When you hold them, you can feel the weight of them pulling down on your arm. They are not designed to look light. They are designed to be a wall. You find the edge of the curtain. You pull it. Clink. It moves on the iron rail hidden under the wooden roof. The metal rings scrape against the rod. It is a solid, mechanical sound. You pull it all the way along the side of the bed. It covers the gap completely. You walk to the other side. You pull the other curtain. Clink. Now the bed is enclosed. The wooden posts are hidden. The mattress is hidden. The bed has transformed. It is no longer a piece of furniture. It is a tent. It is a square box made of wool standing in the middle of the room. The color of the wool is a deep, dark red. It looks like the color of wine. In the candlelight, the folds of the heavy fabric create deep shadows. It looks warm just to look at it. You step back and look at the closed bed. It looks mysterious. You cannot see what is inside. This was very important for the Lord. Remember, the solar is a private room, but it is not empty. The Lord's personal servants often sleep in this room, too. They sleep on the floor on simple straw mats, or on a low truckle bed that rolls out from under the big bed. Without the curtains, the Lord would never be truly alone. But with the heavy wool pulled shut, he has a private world. He can change his clothes, talk to his wife, or just sleep without being watched. But the main job of the curtains is warmth. Think about the air inside that box now. The wooden roof stops the heat going up. The feather mattress stops the cold coming up. And now, the heavy wool curtains stop the heat going sideways. It traps the body heat perfectly. When you sleep in there, your breath warms the air. The temperature rises. It stays warm all night. Even if the fire in the fireplace goes out and the water in the jug freezes, the air inside the curtains stays cozy. You can imagine climbing in there. You would part the heavy curtains just enough to slip through. You would climb onto the soft feathers. Then, you would pull the wool shut behind you. The moment the curtains close, the world disappears. The light from the candle would be blocked out. It would be pitch black. The sound of the wind would be muffled. You would be floating in a warm, dark, silent void. It is the ultimate feeling of security. It is like returning to a cocoon. You reach out and touch the fabric one more time. It is rough against your fingertips. It smells of dried herbs. The servants keep bags of lavender in the folds of the curtains to keep moths away. It is a pleasant, dusty smell, but there is a problem. The bed is designed to keep you warm, but right now it is empty. The feathers are cold, the sheets are cold. The air trapped inside the curtains is stagnant and chilly. If you climbed in now, it would be a shock. The linen sheets would feel like ice against your skin. It would take you an hour of shivering before your body heat warmed up the mattress. The Lord does not want to shiver. He wants the bed to be warm before he gets in. So, he needs help. He needs a tool to heat the sheets. You see a movement near the fireplace. A servant is kneeling by the hearth. He is holding something that looks like a musical instrument or a giant spoon. It is made of shiny brass. He's scooping something out of the fire. You walk towards him. You are going to see how they preheat the bed. You watch the servant kneeling by the fireplace. The fire has died down a little now. The big flames are gone. What is left is a pile of glowing red coals at the bottom of the grate. They pulse with a deep, intense heat. The servant is holding a tool. It looks beautiful in the firelight. It is a long wooden pole, maybe 3 feet long, with a round metal container at the end. The metal is brass. It is polished so bright that it reflects the fire like a mirror. This is a warming pan. It is a very simple machine, but it is one of the most important things in the castle on a night like this. It is basically a metal box on a stick. The servant opens the lid of the brass bomb. It has a hinge on one side. He uses a small iron shovel to scoop up some of the hot coals from the fire. Scrape, rattle. He carefully drops the glowing red embers into the brass pan. He does not take the flaming wood, just the hot charcoal. He adds a few pieces, enough to cover the bottom. Then, he snaps the lid shut. Clack. You look closely at the lid of the pan. It is not solid. It is pierced with holes. The holes are arranged in a pretty pattern, like a star or a flower. These holes are not just for decoration. They are there to let the fire breathe. If the box was airtight, the coals would run out of oxygen and go out. The fire needs air to keep burning. The holes also let the heat escape. They let the warmth flow out of the brass box and into the air. The servant stands up. He holds the long wooden handle. The brass pan at the end is now heavy and incredibly hot. You can see waves of heat shimmering in the air above it. He walks over to the great bed. He moves carefully. He does not want to trip and spill hot coals onto the rushes that would burn the castle down in minutes. He reaches the bed. He pulls back the heavy red curtains you just closed. He lifts the corner of the thick feather mattress and the linen sheets. He slides the brass pan inside the bed. He does not just leave it there. If he left it in one spot, the hot brass would scorch the expensive linen sheets. It might even set the feathers on fire. So, he moves it. He holds the handle with both hands. He moves it up and down, side to side. It looks like he is mopping the inside of the bed. Swish, swish. You can hear the smooth metal sliding against the sheets. It is a soft, rhythmic sound. He works his way all around the bed. He pushes it down to where the feet will go. He pulls it up to where the shoulders will be. He makes sure every inch of the cold linen touches the hot brass. As he works, you can smell something new. It is the smell of hot cloth. It smells like ironing. It is a clean, dry smell. It chases away the damp smell of the stone room. The heat is baking the moisture out of the sheets. You watch the steam rising from the bed. It drifts up and gets trapped under the wooden canopy. The bed is filling up with warm, dry air. The servant works for a few minutes. His face is focused. It is a serious job. A cold bed is miserable, but a burnt bed is a disaster. He has to get it just right. He pulls the pan out for a moment to check the heat. He holds his hand over the brass. It is still radiating a fierce warmth. He nods. It is still working. He slides it back in for one last pass. This is the moment the bed changes. Before this, it was just a pile of cold fabric. Now, it is a heater. The heat from the coals is transferring into the feathers and the wool. The mattress is absorbing the warmth. It is storing it. When the Lord climbs in, he will not feel the shock of cold sheets. He will feel a dry, toasty warmth wrapping around him. The servant finishes. He pulls the long handle back. The brass pan slides out from under the covers. He quickly drops the heavy wool blanket back down to trap the heat inside. He closes the curtains again. He turns and walks back to the fireplace. He opens the lid and tips the cooling grey ash back into the fire. Whoosh! A cloud of sparks flies up the chimney. You look at the bed. It looks the same as it did before. It is just a big red box, but you know that inside, the climate has changed. It is no longer part of the winter night. It is a tropical island hidden behind wool walls. The warming pan is a temporary fix, though. The heat from the sheets will only last for a while. Once the Lord is asleep, the sheets will cool down. His body heat will have to take over. But sometimes, on the very coldest nights, even the body is not enough. Sometimes, the feet get so cold they hurt. The blood stops flowing to the toes. You wake up with cramps in your legs because of the chill. So, they have one more trick. They have a way to keep the heat going all night long. It is not a machine like the warming pan. It is something simpler, something heavier. You see the servant reach for a basket near the hearth. Inside, there are objects that look like grey loaves of bread, but they are not bread. They are stones. You watch as he places them right into the edge of the fire. You are going to see how a simple rock can become a battery for heat. You watch the servant put the brass warming pan away. He leans the long wooden handle against the wall. The brass is cooling down now, losing its shine as the heat fades. That tool did a good job. It took the icy sting out of the sheets. It made the bed welcoming, but the warmth from the pan is thin. It is just surface heat. It will drift away in an hour or two. The night is long. The cold is patient. It will try to creep back in around 3 or 4 in the morning, when the fire burns low. So, you need something that lasts. You need a battery made of rock. You look back at the fireplace. The servant is kneeling there again. He's reaching into the side of the hearth, right next to the glowing red coals. He's using a pair of heavy iron tongs. He clamps the tongs around something sitting in the ashes. He pulls it out. It is a heavy, grey block. It is a brick, or perhaps a large, smooth stone from the river. It has been sitting there 4 hours, while the fire was roaring. This stone was quietly drinking up the heat. It was absorbing the energy of the flames. Now, it is incredibly hot. If you touched it with your bare hand, it would burn you instantly. It is a dangerous, silent block of heat. The servant moves quickly but carefully. He cannot walk across the room carrying a hot brick in iron tongs. If he dropped it, it would burn a hole in the rushes or crack the tiles. He turns to a small wooden stool nearby. On the stool, there are pieces of cloth waiting. They are not made of silk or rough linen. They are made of flannel. This is a specific micro-history detail. Flannel is a type of soft, woven wool. It has been brushed so that the fibers are loose and fuzzy. It feels soft against the skin, like the fur of a peach. But the flannel is not just for comfort. It is for safety. The servant places the scorching hot stone into the middle of the cloth. He folds the flannel over it. He wraps it round and round, layer after layer. He ties the ends in a knot. Now, the dangerous brick has turned into a soft, warm bundle. It looks like a little grey pillow. The layers of wool act as a filter. They stop the fierce heat from rushing out all at once. Instead, the heat has to push its way through the thick, fuzzy fabric. It comes out slowly, gently. It turns the burning heat into a steady, glowing warmth. The servant picks up the bundle. He holds it against his chest for a second. Even through his thick clothes, he can feel the power of it. It is heavy. It weighs 3 or 4 pounds. He walks back to the huge bed. He opens the curtains again. He reaches deep inside, all the way to the bottom. He places the wrapped stone right in the center, down where the feet will go. This is the medieval hot water bottle, but in many ways, it is better than a water bottle. Water cools down fast. A rubber bottle is cold by the morning, but stone is dense. It holds heat for a very long time. A big brick like that, wrapped in wool, will still be warm when the sun comes up. It releases its heat slowly, hour after hour, fighting the cold right through the deepest part of the night. He goes back to the fire. He pulls out another stone. He wraps it in another piece of flannel. He puts this one on the left side of the bed. Then he does it again for the right side. He's building a wall of heat at the bottom of the bed. You can imagine what it feels like to sleep there. You climb in. You slide your legs down the cool sheets. And then your toes find the bundle. It is solid and heavy. You can push your feet against it. It anchors you. The warmth rushes into your cold toes, traveling up your legs. It relaxes your whole body. It is a dry, deep heat that seems to get right into your bones. The servant smooths the covers down. He checks that the stones are sitting flat. You don't want to kick a sharp corner in the middle of the night. He makes sure they are tucked in tight. He closes the heavy red curtains for the last time. Swish, the bed is sealed. Inside that box, the system is now complete. The warming pan has heated the air in the sheets. The feathers will trap the body heat. The canopy will stop the heat rising. The curtains will stop the drafts. And down at the bottom, the hot stones will act like a radiator, pumping out warmth all night long. It is a perfect machine for survival. The servant stands up. He wipes his hands on his apron. His work with the bed is done. He looks tired. He has been moving heavy things and working near the hot fire. His face is flushed red from the heat. He picks up his tools. He takes the warming pan and the tongs. He moves them to the side of the room, placing them neatly against the wall. The room is quieting down now. The bustle of preparation is over. The bed is ready. The fire is settling. You look around the room. It feels different now. When you first walked in, it felt like an empty, cold space. Now, it feels lived in. It feels prepared. It feels like a nest that is waiting for its bird. But there is one more thing the Lord needs. The room is ready, and the bed is ready, but the man himself is not. He cannot sleep in his day clothes. He cannot sleep in his cold metal armor or his stiff leather doublet. He needs to dress for the battle against the cold. You see a chest open at the foot of the bed. On top of it, laid out neatly, are white clothes. They look simple, but they are essential. You walk over to look at the night clothes. You want to see what a medieval lord wore to bed to keep the frost from touching his skin. You turn your eyes from the high, warm bed. You look down at the heavy wooden chest that sits at the foot of the bed frame. The lid is open. Inside, you see the clothes that have been prepared for the night. In the movies, you often see medieval people sleeping naked, or sometimes they sleep in their day clothes, just flopping down on the bed in their muddy boots. But for a lord in a wealthy castle, this was not the way. Sleep was a ceremony. You had to dress for it. You reach into the chest and pull out the first item. It is a long, white shirt. It is simple. It has no buttons. It has no zippers. It has a wide neck opening with a little string to tie it shut. The sleeves are long and loose. The hem goes all the way down to the ankles. It looks like a long, white dress. You rub the fabric between your thumb and finger. It feels cool and smooth. It is slightly stiff, but not scratchy. This is linen. Linen is one of the oldest fabrics in the world. It is made from the flax plant. Flax is a tall grass with a pretty blue flower. To make the thread, they have to take the stem of the plant and soak it in water until it rots. Then they beat it to get the long, strong fibers out. It is a lot of work, but the result is worth it. Linen is amazing for the skin. It is very strong, much stronger than cotton. But the most important thing is that it is absorbent. It drinks up water. Think about the Lord's day. He has been wearing heavy wool tunics. He might have been wearing leather armor. He has been riding horses and sitting by hot fires. He has been sweating. If he wore those heavy, dirty clothes to bed, he would be uncomfortable. The sweat would stay on his skin. He would get itchy, and the dirt from his body would rub off onto the expensive feather bed. So, the linen shirt is a barrier. It is a second skin. You hold the shirt up against your body. It is light. It moves easily. In the Middle Ages, this shirt was called a chemise or a shift. It was actually the bottom layer of the day clothes. 2. A person would wear this linen shirt under their wool tunic during the day. It caught all the sweat and oil from the body. This was a clever system. You cannot wash a heavy velvet coat with gold embroidery. If you put that in a bucket of water, you would ruin it. But you can wash a linen shirt. You can boil it. You can scrub it with stones. You can bleach it in the sun until it is bright white again. So, the Lord might have a fresh, clean shirt just for sleeping. Or, if he's tired, he might just take off his heavy outer layers and sleep in his day shirt. But tonight, let's imagine he changes. You can picture the moment of changing. It is a fast, chilly moment. He stands on the warm rushes. He unties his heavy belt. He pulls off the thick wool tunic. For a few seconds, the cold air of the room hits his skin. The draft from the window touches his back. He gets goosebumps. He shivers. Then, he dives into the fresh linen shirt. Swish, he pulls it down over his head. The cool fabric touches his skin. For a second, it feels crisp and cold, but linen warms up very fast. Within moments, it matches his body temperature. The shirt is loose. It traps a layer of air against his skin. It allows his body to breathe. After the heavy, tight clothes of the day, this must feel wonderful. It is the feeling of freedom. It is the feeling of the day's weight falling off his shoulders. But the shirt is only half the outfit. You look back into the chest. There is something else lying there. It is smaller. You pick it up. It is a little hat. It is made of white linen, just like the shirt. It is close-fitting, shaped like a bowl or a helmet made of cloth. It has 2 long strings hanging down from the sides. This is the coif. Today, we might think a sleeping hat looks funny. We see them in cartoons, usually with a pom-pom on the end. But in the medieval castle, the nightcap was a serious piece of survival gear. There is an old saying, if your feet are cold, put on a hat. It sounds wrong, but it is true. A huge amount of your body heat is lost through your head. Your head is like a chimney. The heat rises up from your body and escapes from the top of your skull. If you lie in the bed, your body is covered by the feathers and the wool blankets. Your feet are warm against the hot stones, but your head is sticking out. Your head is lying on the pillow, exposed to the cold air of the room. If you did not wear a hat, your ears would freeze. Your nose would get icy. You would wake up with a headache from the cold. So, you wear the coif. You put it on your head. It covers your hair completely. It covers your ears. You take the strings and tie them under your chin, tug, knot. Now, you are sealed in. The hat traps the heat at the top of your head. It keeps your ears warm. It stops the draft from tickling your neck. But the coif does something else, too. It keeps the bed clean. People in the Middle Ages used a lot of oils on their hair. They did not wash their hair with shampoo every day like we do. Their hair might be greasy. Or, to be honest, it might have lice. Even rich people got lice. It was a fact of life. The tight linen cap keeps the hair contained. It stops the grease from getting onto the expensive pillowcase. It stops the lice from crawling into the bed. It is a hygienic barrier. Sometimes, in the very deep winter, the Lord might wear a second hat over the coif. This one would be made of wool, or maybe even fur. It would be a thick, fuzzy cone to add extra insulation, but usually, the white linen coif is enough. You place the cap back in the chest. You look at the outfit as a whole. The long white shirt, the tight white cap. When a person is dressed like this, they look very different from their daytime self. During the day, the Lord is a figure of power. He wears red and gold. He wears fur and leather. He wears a sword. He looks big and wide. But in his night clothes, he looks small, he looks simple, he's dressed all in white, like a ghost or a monk. He has stripped away his armor and his rank. He's just a man in a shirt, trying to stay warm. It is a humble look. It reminds us that sleep is the great leveler. When we close our eyes, we are all the same. We are all just soft bodies needing warmth. You close the lid of the chest. Thump. The clothes are ready. The bed is ready. The room is as warm it is going to get. The fire is burning low, casting long shadows across the floor. But before the Lord can actually get into the bed, there is one last problem. He has friends, and his friends are cold, too. You hear a sound from the corner of the room. It is a scratching sound, scritch, scritch, then a soft whine. You turn your head. You see a pair of eyes reflecting the candlelight. You realize that the Lord does not sleep alone in this room. He shares his warmth with his most loyal companions. You walk towards the corner to meet the living heaters of the castle. You walk slowly towards the corner of the solar. The scratching sound has stopped. The room is quiet again, except for the soft pop of the fire. But you know something is there in the shadows. You hold your candle out. The circle of yellow light pushes back the dark. At first, you see what looks like a pile of rugs. It is a heap of grey and brown fur on the floor. Then, the pile moves. An ear twitches. A long leg stretches out. A tail gives a slow, heavy thump against the floorboards. Thump, thump. These are the dogs. You might think of dogs as pets. You might think of them playing fetch in the park. But in a medieval castle, dogs are different. They are workers. They are tools. And tonight, their job is not to hunt deer in the forest. Their job is to keep the master warm. You step closer. You see two of them lying there. They are greyhounds. They are beautiful animals. They are tall and lean, with long, thin noses and deep chests. Their fur is short and smooth. It feels like velvet. Underneath the skin, you can see the ripple of their muscles. They are built for speed. They are built to run like the wind. But right now, they are doing the opposite of running. They are in shutdown mode. They are conserving energy. You kneel down next to them. The big male dog lifts his head. He looks at you with large, dark eyes. They are calm and soulful. He knows you belong here. He lets out a long sigh through his nose HFFFF and drops his heavy head back onto his paws. You reach out and touch his side. It is shocking how hot he is. This is a simple piece of biology. A dog's body temperature is higher than a human's. Your body runs at about 37 degrees Celsius, but a dog runs at about 38 or 39 degrees. To the touch, they feel like a hot water bottle that never goes cold. You stroke his back. The heat radiates through his short fur and into your palm. It is a dry, intense living heat. This is why they are allowed in the bedroom. In the great hall downstairs, there are dozens of dogs. They are the spaniels, the terriers, the big mastiffs. They sleep in a big, smelly pile near the fire to keep warm. But the Lord's favorite dogs, his best hunters, are invited upstairs. They are the blanket warmers. When the Lord climbs into that high wooden bed, he will often call the dogs up. Pat, pat. He will tap the mattress. The dogs will jump up. Their claws will click on the wood, but they land softly on the feather bed. They will circle around a few times, making a nest in the covers. Then, they will curl up into tight balls. They usually sleep at the foot of the bed, right on top of the heavy wool blankets. Their weight pins the covers down, stopping the drafts. Their body heat soaks through the layers of wool and warms the Lord's feet. Sometimes, on the very coldest nights, the Lord might pull them closer. He might sleep with the dogs curled right up against his back. There is an old phrase you might have heard, a 3-dog night. It means a night that is so freezing cold, you need 3 dogs in the bed to keep you from dying. 1 dog is for a chilly night. 2 dogs is for a frost. 3 dogs is for a blizzard. Tonight, with the wind howling at the shutters, it feels like a 2-dog night. You look at the second dog. It is a female, slightly smaller. She's curled up so tight that her nose is tucked under her tail. She looks like a fuzzy donut. You can smell them. It is a strong, earthy smell. It smells of musk and wet grass. It is not a clean smell by modern standards, but to the medieval nose, it is a comforting smell. It is the smell of loyalty. It reminds the lord of the hunt. It reminds him of the open fields and the summer sun. It is a smell of life in a room made of dead stone. But the dogs provide more than just heat. They provide safety. You look at the ears of the male dog. One of them is swiveled back, listening. Even while he sleeps, he is alert. A castle can be a dangerous place. There are always whispers of spies or assassins. A human guard might fall asleep at his post. A human guard might be bribed with gold to look the other way. But you cannot bribe a dog. If a stranger opened that heavy oak door right now, the dog would know instantly. He would smell the fear. He would hear the strange footstep. In a split second, this lazy pile of warm fur would turn into a weapon. The deep chest would fill with air. A low growl would rumble in his throat, vibrating through the floor. He would be a wall of teeth between his master and the danger. The Lord sleeps soundly because he knows the dogs are listening for him. You watch the dogs breathing. Their ribs rise and fall in perfect rhythm. Up, down, up, down. It is a soothing sight. It makes you yawn. Seeing another creature sleeping so deeply makes your own eyelids feel heavy. It is contagious. You notice a collar on the male dog. It is not a cheap strip of leather. It is made of red velvet, embroidered with gold thread. It has little brass studs on it. This tells you how much the Lord loves these animals. In a time when some poor people wore rags, this dog is wearing velvet. He is a member of the family. He eats better meat than most of the peasants in the village. The dog twitches in his sleep. His legs kick out a little bit, like he is running. He makes a tiny, high-pitched yip sound. He's dreaming. Maybe he's chasing a hare across the summer fields. Maybe he's running through the forest. In his dream, it is not winter. The sun is shining, and the grass is green. You smile. It is a gentle, funny moment in the serious stone tower. You stand up slowly. Your knees crack a little in the quiet room. You don't want to wake them. You want them to save their energy for the long night ahead. You look at the space between the dogs and the bed. The floor is covered in the soft rushes we saw earlier. The dogs have pushed the herbs around to make their bed. The smell of crushed lavender is mixed with the dog smell. It feels like a den. It is primitive and cozy. It is a pack of animals, human and hound, huddling together against the elements. You step back towards the center of the room. The dogs are settled. The bed is warmed. The fire is glowing. The room is as ready as it will ever be. But now, you need to stop looking at the objects. You need to stop looking at the furniture and the animals. You need to stop moving. To understand the night shift, you have to do what the night watchman does. You have to listen. You have to stand perfectly still and let the silence of the castle wash over you. You have to hear the noises that only happen when the world is asleep. You blow out your candle, puff. The little flame vanishes. A thin trail of grey smoke rises up. The room plunges into semi-darkness. The only light now comes from the dying fire and the tiny cracks in the window shutter. You stand in the dark. You are ready to listen to the voice of the castle night. You stand in the darkness. The candle flame is gone. The smell of the extinguished wick, a sharp, smoky scent hangs in the air for a moment, then drifts away. Your eyes need time to adjust. A moment ago, the room was full of golden light. Now, it feels like you have been plunged into a cave. You blink, you wait. Slowly, the room comes back to you. It is not pitch black. The fire in the hearth is low, but it is not out. The bed of red coals gives off a deep, glowing light. It is a dim, crimson light, like the last moments of a sunset. It barely reaches the walls. The corners of the room are lost in deep shadow. The ceiling is invisible. The great bed is just a large, dark shape rising out of the gloom. But now that your eyes are working less, your ears start to work more. When the light was on, you were looking at things. You were looking at the tiles, the carvings, and the dogs. Your brain was busy processing pictures. But now, in the dark, the visual world is gone. The audio world takes over. You stand perfectly still on the rushes. You hold your breath. You listen. The first thing you hear is the wind. When you were walking outside, the wind was a physical thing. It was pushing you. It was biting your face. It was loud and chaotic. But in here, behind 6 feet of stone, the wind sounds different. It sounds distant, boo. It is a low, moaning sound. It rises and falls. Sometimes it sounds like a voice crying out in the distance. Sometimes it sounds like a train passing far away. It buffers against the stone walls. You can hear the heavy thud of the gusts hitting the tower. Hump. The whole building seems to absorb the blow. It doesn't shake, but you can feel the pressure. Then, you hear the rattle. It comes from the window alcove. The heavy wooden shutters are locked tight, but the wind is persistent. It finds the tiny gap between the wood and the stone. It shakes the shutter in its frame. Tock dash tock dash tock. It is a small, irritating sound, but in a way, it is comforting. It reminds you that the barrier is holding. The wind wants to get in, but the wood is saying no. It is the sound of the castle doing its job. You listen deeper. You try to hear past the wind. The castle itself is making noise. You might think a stone building is silent. You might think it is dead. But an old castle is always moving. It is always settling. High above you, in the roof, a wooden beam cracks. Crack. It is a loud, sharp sound, like a pistol shot. It makes you jump. But then silence returns. This is a specific piece of microhistory. This sound comes from the green oak. When medieval carpenters built these great roofs and floors, they did not wait for the wood to dry out completely. They often built with green timber, which still had sap inside it. Oak is incredibly strong, but as it dries over the years and centuries it shrinks. It twists. The fibers of the wood pull against each other. They tighten, and every now and then, the tension gets too much, and the wood snaps or shifts. Even though this castle is old, the wood is still finding its comfortable shape. The house is stretching in its sleep. You hear a soft creak from the floorboards near the door. No one is walking there. It is just the wood cooling down as the fire fades. These sounds used to scare people. In a superstitious time, when people believed in ghosts and goblins, a loud crack in the dark room was terrifying. They thought it was a spirit walking the halls. But you know it is just the physics of the wood. It is the house talking to itself. You let out your breath. HHHFFF. The silence in between the noises is heavy. It is a thick silence. In your modern world, there is never true silence. Even at night, there is the hum of a refrigerator. There is the distant rumble of traffic on a highway. There is the buzz of streetlights. There is always a background hum of electricity and machines. But here, there is zero hum. There is no electricity. There are no engines. When the wind dies down, the silence is absolute. It feels deep and empty. It is a deafening silence. It presses against your ears. It makes every tiny sound seem huge. You hear a scratch, scratch. It comes from the corner, behind the wood paneling. It is a mouse. It is waking up. Now that the people are quiet, the little creatures of the castle are starting their shift. You can hear its tiny claws scrambling on the stone behind the wood. It is looking for a crumb of bread dropped from dinner. The dogs hear it too. From the pile of fur in the corner, you hear a low, sleepy huff. The greyhound shifts his weight. He is too tired to chase it tonight. He just lets the mouse go. Then, you hear something else. A sound from outside. But not the wind. It is a rhythmic, metallic sound. Clink, clink, clink. It is faint. It is coming from far below, maybe from the wall walk or the courtyard. It is the sound of boots on stone. It is the sound of metal armor clinking against itself. This is the watch. Even while the Lord sleeps, the castle does not. There are men awake. They are walking the top of the high stone walls. They are patrolling the battlements. They are out there in the freezing wind, wrapped in their thick cloaks, holding their spears. They are looking out into the black fields, watching for torches, listening for the sound of an army approaching. Every hour, they might call out to each other, "All is well." You don't hear the voice tonight, just the footsteps. But knowing they are there changes the feeling of the room. You are not alone in this stone tower. You are being guarded. There is a ring of steel around the sleeping castle. It makes you feel safe. It allows you to relax. You don't have to listen for danger, because someone else is doing it for you. You look back at the fire. The logs have broken apart. The structure has collapsed. It is just a pile of glowing lumps now. As you watch, one of the logs settles, sklunk. A shower of sparks flies up the chimney. For a second, the room gets brighter. The shadows jump back. You see the lion face on the bedpost clearly. You see the red wool of the curtains. Then, the sparks fade, and the dark returns. The fire is making a soft, breathing sound. Ha 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 ha. It is the sound of the draft sucking the air through the coals. It is a hypnotic sound. It sounds like the room itself is asleep and snoring gently. You feel the cold starting to creep back in. When you were moving around, looking at the bed and the clothes, you stayed warm. But now that you are standing still, the chill of the stone floor is coming through the soreness of your boots. The air away from the fire is cooling down. The heat battery of the room is running low. The stones have given up a lot of their warmth. The temperature is dropping. You wrap your arms around yourself. You rub your shoulders. The heavy wool of your cloak feels good, but you can feel the cold air touching your nose and your ears. You realize that you cannot just stand here in the dark all night. If you do nothing, the fire will go out. The cold will win. The room will turn into an icebox by morning. You have a job to do. You are not the lord who gets to sleep in the feather bed. You are the guardian of the room. You are the one who keeps the heart of the room beating. You look at the red glow of the hearth. It is pleading with you. It needs food. It needs care. You step away from the quiet center of the room. You walk back towards the fireplace. The silence is broken by the sound of your own boots. Step, step. You are going to tend the fire. You are going to make sure the warmth lasts until the sun comes back. You step up to the edge of the hearth. The big stone hood hangs above you, disappearing into the shadows. The fire that was once bright and dancing is now quiet. It is just a low mound of grey and white ash, but you know that appearances can be deceiving. You pick up the iron poker from the side of the fireplace. It is heavy and cold in your hand. You reach out and gently push the tip into the pile of grey ash. Crunch. The moment you break the crust, a deep, angry orange light spills out. The heart of the fire is still alive. Inside the grey shell, the wood is still burning with a fierce, steady heat. It has turned into charcoal. This is the hottest part of the fire. It is not showy like the yellow flames, but it is powerful. You feel the heat hit your face instantly. It makes your skin tingle. It is a dry, sharp heat that smells of cooked wood. You have a job to do now. It is late. You cannot just pile more big logs on. If you did that, the fire would roar up again. It would burn fast and hot. It would waste the precious wood while everyone is asleep, and it might be dangerous. A sparking log could roll out onto the floor while no one is watching. So, you have to do something called banking the fire. This is where we get a very famous word. In the old French language of the Normans, the phrase for cover the fire was couvre-feu. Over time, the English people changed the pronunciation. Couvre-feu became curfew. Today, a curfew means a time when you have to be home. But originally, it was a time when the bell rang to tell everyone to cover their fires for the night. It was the fire cover time. You are going to perform the curfew now. You take the poker and you rake the glowing orange coals together. You pile them into a neat, tight mound in the center of the hearth. Scrape, scrape. The sound of the iron on the stone is loud in the quiet room. Then you take the shovel. You scoop up the grey, dead ashes from the edge of the fireplace. These are cool and soft, like grey flour. You gently pour the ash over the top of the bright orange coals. Whoosh! A cloud of grey dust rises up for a second. The bright orange light is smothered. The glow disappears. The fireplace goes dark. This might look like you have put the fire out, but you haven't. You have put it to sleep. By covering the coals with ash, you are starving the fire of oxygen. It cannot burn bright or fast anymore, but it stays hot. It smolders deep inside the pile. It hibernates. This is a clever trick. It means the fuel will last all night. The heat will stay trapped in the stones. And in the morning, when the servant comes in with the bellows, he won't have to start a new fire with flint and steel. He will just rake back the ash, blow on the red coals, and the fire will spring back to life instantly. You place the tools back against the wall. Clink. The room is very dark now. The red glow of the hearth is gone. The only light comes from the tiny cracks in the window shutter where the moon is trying to get in. You stand there in the gloom. The heat from the buried fire is still radiating out. The iron fire back is still hot. The stones are still warm. You have done your job. You have saved the fire for tomorrow. You feel the exhaustion of the night catching up with you. The adrenaline of the cold walk and the climbing is gone. Your eyes feel heavy. Your legs feel slow. You walk over to the corner of the room, near the door. There is a simple wooden stool there, and a pile of sheepskins. This is where the watcher sits. This is your spot. You sit down. The wood is hard, but the sheepskin is soft. You lean your back against the wooden screen. You pull your heavy cloak tight around you. You listen to the room one last time. The wind outside has dropped. The rattling at the window has stopped. The castle has settled. The mouse has found its crumb and gone back to its hole. The dogs are silent, just soft heaps of breathing fur. The Lord is asleep in his box of feathers. The fire is asleep under its blanket of ash. The whole castle is in a state of suspended animation. It is waiting. You close your eyes, just for a moment. You drift in that space between waking and sleeping. You are aware of the cold air on your nose, but you are warm inside your wool layers. Time passes. It moves slowly in the dark. There are no clocks ticking here. There is only the slow cooling of the stone and the slow turning of the stars outside. You sit there 4 hours, the silent guardian in the dark. You are the only thing awake in the stone tower. Then, you notice a change. It is not a sound. It is a feeling. The air in the room feels different. It feels thinner. The heavy, settled feeling of the deep night is lifting. You open your eyes. You look towards the window. The cracks in the shutter are not showing silver moonlight anymore. They are showing something else. The light is grey. It is blue. The blackness is fading. The grip of the night is loosening. You stand up. Your body is stiff from sitting on the stool. You stretch your arms. You walk across the rushes one last time. The smell of the lavender is faint now, but still there. You walk towards the window. You want to see the end of the shift. You want to see the return of the sun. You reach for the heavy iron bar that locks the shutters. You stand at the window alcove. Your hand is resting on the heavy iron bar that has held the shutters closed all night. The iron is freezing cold. It feels sticky, as if your skin wants to bond with the metal. You lift the bar. Clunk. It is heavy. You slide it out of its brackets and lean it against the stone wall. The shutters are now unlocked. They are the only thing separating you from the morning. You push the wood. At first, it sticks. The frost has glued the oak to the stone frame. You have to give it a hard shove. Crack. The seal of ice breaks. The shutter swings open. Immediately, the light hits you. It is not the warm, yellow light of the candle or the fire. It is a stark, brilliant white. It is the light of a winter morning. It floods into the dark room, cutting through the shadows like a blade. You blink, dazzled by the brightness. You look out. The storm is gone. The wind has stopped screaming. The sky is a pale, hard blue. There is not a single cloud. The sun is just coming up over the horizon. It looks like a coin of bright gold. But it is the world below that catches your eye. Everything has changed. Yesterday, the fields were brown and grey. Today, they are silver. The frost has covered everything. The trees look like they have been dipped in sugar. The grass in the courtyard is a carpet of white crystals. The moat is a sheet of white ice. The world looks clean. It looks silent and new. You look down at the stone sill of the window, right in front of your face. There are patterns there. The moisture in the air has frozen on the cold stone. It has formed shapes. They look like feathers. They look like fern leaves. They look like tiny forests made of crystal. This is a beautiful piece of natural history. These are called ice ferns. They grow when the air is damp and the stone is freezing. The water vapor turns straight into ice, skipping the liquid stage. It builds up, crystal by crystal, following the tiny scratches and imperfections in the stone. No two ferns are ever the same. They are a temporary art gallery, painted by the cold. You feel the air rushing in through the open window. It is incredibly fresh. It smells of snow and cold earth. It wakes you up better than any coffee. But it is freezing. You cannot leave the window open for long. You don't want to lose all the heat you fought so hard to keep. You pull the shutter back, but you leave it open just a crack. You let a single beam of sunlight stay in the room. You turn back to look at the solar. The room looks different in the daylight. The mystery of the shadows is gone. You can see the dust motes dancing in the sunbeam. You can see the worn patches on the floor tiles. The room looks real again. You hear a noise from the fireplace. The servant has returned. He is kneeling by the hearth. He is holding the bellows. This is a tool made of wood and leather. It looks like a pair of lungs. He points the metal nozzle at the pile of grey ash you made last night. He pumps the handles. Wheeze, puff. A jet of air blows into the ash. The grey dust flies up. The sleeping orange coals inside glow bright red. They wake up instantly. He puts a small handful of dry kindling, little twigs and wood shavings onto the coals. They catch fire with a snap. A yellow flame jumps up. Within minutes, the fire is roaring again. The heat begins to flow back into the room. He stands up and goes to the small table near the wall. There is a basin there for washing. It is made of silver. Next to it is a jug of water, colder ewer. He picks up the jug. He tries to pour the water into the basin. Nothing comes out. The water inside the jug has frozen during the night. Even though the room stayed warm enough for the people, the water in the corner was too far from the fire. The servant is prepared. He picks up a small metal rod. He pokes it into the neck of the jug. Crunch, crack. He breaks the ice. He pours the water. It comes out as a slush, full of sharp shards of ice. Splosh. He will place the jug near the fire to warm it up. No lord wants to wash his face with ice water. It is a reminder of just how close the winter came to getting inside. You look towards the great bed. The heavy red curtains are still closed. It is a silent red box in the middle of the room. But then, you see the fabric move. The dogs know it is morning. The greyhound pokes his nose out through the gap in the curtains. He yawns, showing his pink tongue and white teeth. Yawn. He stretches his long front legs out, shaking the sleep off his muscles. He jumps down from the high bed. Thump. His claws click on the tiles. He walks over to the patch of sun on the floor and lies down in it. He has found the new warm spot. Then, the curtains open wider. The Lord sits up. He is wearing his white linen shirt and his white coif cap. He rubs his eyes. He pushes the heavy wool blankets away. He swings his legs out of the bed. His feet hunt for the wooden step. He does not look frozen. He does not look like he has been shivering all night. He looks rested. The system worked. The stone walls were cold. The wind was fierce. The window froze. But inside the bed, under the wooden roof, behind the wool curtains, on top of the feather sack, he was safe. He slept in a bubble of summer while the winter raged outside. He steps down onto the floor. He steps onto the rushes. Crunch. He walks towards the fire. He stands before the new flames, warming his hands. He's ready for the day. He's ready to put on his velvet and his fur. He's ready to be the Lord again. You can hear the castle waking up around you now. Through the floor, you can hear the faint sounds of the great hall below. You hear the clatter of pots. You hear voices shouting orders. More wood. Bring the bread. Outside in the courtyard, you hear the horses. Nay, you hear the blacksmith's hammer starting its rhythm. Clang, clang. The night shift is over. The battle against the cold has been won for another night. The sun has returned to take over the watch. The stone walls will start to warm up, soaking in the weak winter sunlight, getting ready to face the dark again when evening comes. You take one last look around the solar. You see the tapestries hanging on the walls. You see the wooden screen by the door. You see the warming pan leaning in the corner. You see all the tools that made survival possible. It was not magic. It was not technology as we know it. It was just cleverness. It was knowing how to use wood, wool, feathers, and fire to create a home in a hostile world. You feel a sense of pride. You walked the cold path. You climbed the windy stairs. You tended the fire. You kept the watch. You pull your cloak tight around your shoulders one last time, not because you are cold, but because it is time to go. You are leaving the medieval world behind. You are stepping back out of the history book. You walk towards the heavy oak door. You lift the latch. Click. You step out onto the landing. The spiral stairs are waiting, but this time they are not dark. Light is flooding down from the arrow loops. The way down is clear. Wind down. You are leaving the stone tower now. You are walking away from the castle, back across the fields. The snow is crunching softly under your feet, but you do not feel the cold. You are moving away from that time, drifting back towards your own time. The heavy oak doors, the thick wool curtains, and the stone walls are fading behind you. They are becoming like a drawing in an old book, getting fainter and fainter. You are returning to your own room. You are returning to your own bed. Feel the difference. Your mattress is soft and even. Your blankets are light and warm. You do not need to worry about the draft from the window. You do not need to worry about the fire going out. You do not need to wrap hot stones in flannel. You are safe. Your home is warm. The technology of your world is watching over you, keeping the temperature perfect, silently and easily. Let your shoulders drop. Let the muscles in your back relax. You have walked a long way tonight, through the frozen mud and the dark corridors. Now it is time to rest. Your legs feel heavy and comfortable. Your breathing is slow and steady. You are sinking deeper into your own pillows, feeling the gentle support that is always there for you. The images of the flickering candles and the glowing embers are just memories now, soft and golden in your mind. They are peaceful thoughts to carry you into sleep. The castle is safe. The people are warm. The history is resting, and so are you. The night is yours to enjoy, in perfect comfort, in perfect peace. The sun is rising, the gates are opening, the watch is ended.